Good evening, all. It's almost Friday. You're nervous. You're here to ask questions that only Danny can answer. I'm here as well, clicking buttons. Everything's ready. We're going to come 1 and 2 this year. It'll be like a classic. What was a good Formula One partnership where they were always like 1 and 2, and you knew that they were going to come in like that? This is an immediate conversational tangent that I didn't prepare for.
No, same. And now I'm trying to think of one where there wasn't just the number one driver, because usually if it was 1 and 2, they didn't get on. You see, it's like I'm thinking of like Hamilton, Alonso.
Well, there you go. I mean, people will be wondering now whether we seek. It's always an interesting thing about FPL. I wonder is like whether you want your friends to do well. I'm trying to get to that mature place. The good thing is we need each other to do quite well. Otherwise, the pod looks rubbish. So I suppose that kind of answers the question for us. For everyone else, we hope you do slightly worse. But yeah, how are you this evening, Danny?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, I was just going to say we want our friends to do well as long as they don't do better than us, don't we? Generally, I mean, let's be honest. I'm good. I'm totally scrambled, so I need your help even more than normal tonight because I'm just like I've just back from holiday in France. I can barely speak. And yeah, just like we just sort of stayed in this old house thing, and it was 40 degrees yesterday, by the way, in France, and it was just so hot at night time, so I barely got any sleep any night. I was just literally waking up in like just puddles and puddles of sweat, and just terrible to sleep. And then obviously the last night you end up drinking more than all the other nights, so then you feel even rougher because you've got to get up earlier for the airport. So I don't know. I was kind of thinking we weren't going to pod all day today, but then it was always just inevitable, wasn't it? So now it's just happening. So yeah. So I apologize.
One of the most disappointing things about getting older is when you speak to your friends and you say, "Oh, to be honest, I was up all night last night." 20 years ago that would have been great. It would have been something terrific had happened, and But now I was the same. Even here, and obviously it's 10 degrees cooler. But it was quite uncomfortable. I suspect there were a few things playing on my mind, as it is. And actually, I'm sort of quite incognito this week, sort of quite low key because I'm on His Majesty's Secret Service, so to speak. It's all 12 angry men. What I'm up to this week, I'm not actually allowed to. This could be illegal, Yeah, it's not.
You've given enough away there. Yeah.
We're not talking about anything like that. But yes, that's what I'm up to this week. But the good news is we'll be looking at drafts tonight where we're at. We're both a bit scrambled, so don't expect it to be terribly coherent. There's a wheel. There's the appearance of a wheel. I should probably give a nod to all of the other pods that have done wheel things in the past. I mean, Above Average definitely have perfected the wheel in the past. So that they're probably the ones who I should immediately name check. But we'll be doing some sort of quick fire questions a bit later on. We're looking at both of our drafts at this point in time. And just to remind you again, before any kind of notes in the chat, etc., we don't see each other's drafts before they appear. Yes, no skullduggery. It's very unfortunate that we decided to pick like-minded people to talk to on this pod, which is why we have to get guests who are interesting, like Stu, who does something crazy, or someone who has a very interesting different way of looking at things. So yeah, we need those people, but it's just me and Danny tonight, I'm afraid. But we'll do our best as well. Yes, Nick, but just a kind of general note before we go into the nitty gritty, though, Danny. I mean, how prepared do you feel at this point in time? Do you generally feel calm and assured 48 hours before deadline, or is it a moment? Is there a sort of, is it panic stations? Do you wobble? What's your kind of?
Well, I was just going to say, sorry, before I go on to that, Nick in the chat said Hamilton and Bottas was a good one. Does he mean Button? I guess Hamilton and Bottas, but Hamilton and Button's a good one because you can be like the Jensen Button because you're more sensible and reliable than me. So you could be the Jensen Button and better looking.
I don't want to be Jensen.
Okay, I'll be Jensen Button. I'll be Jensen Button. He was brilliant, and he was champion. I'll take Jensen.
This is all an era thing as well. Like I think my best awareness of F1 was in that kind of, where what was it, Jordan? Like where Damon Hill was actually driving for Jordan, I think at the time. So that's my kind of frame of reference, is roughly that time. I'm guessing that was about 20.
God, yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
25 years ago, probably. Who was driving for Jordan? Oh God, this is ridiculous. This is terrible. Why are we doing this?
We're thinking of Nigel Mansell and like Williams and Benetton and all that. Anyway, in terms of your question, obviously I do everything. That's like my entire aim, isn't it? I think it's everyone's aim, isn't it, to do everything in your power to not be a complete gibbering wreck. I mean, if you, the worst thing ever for me is if you're unsure going into game week 1, if you don't feel settled. But it does. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because it's how can you ever be settled? Because, for example, I don't know if you're the same, but don't you just think like every day for the last month, you sort of think, right, I think I'm there actually. You know, I'd be happy if the game started tomorrow now, and then the next day it's different, and the next day it's different. So it's kind of ridiculous because somehow our brain does work that around for us. Once the deadline's gone, we sort of stop questioning it, don't we? Well, we should do at least anyway. So I'm generally, I think from memory, I'm generally pretty good like that. Like I say, because I think I tend to, again, in terms of my process, I tend to sort of try to tick off the main points or the main strategy and the main players. So even if I am a little bit like unsure, or it's usually just about some fringe players, or it's usually because I've not left time to actually think about, you know, much about the bench, or I don't know, captaincy and all that sort of stuff. And you don't want last minute leaks. Was it Saliba Gabriel, wasn't it, a couple of years ago? And that sort of
my! Like, we were on the other side of the fence there.
Yeah, well, because we got Saliba in, you mean?
No, you did, and my finger was not fast enough.
No, well, yeah, you say that, but you just weren't decisive enough, were you? Really, you needed a bit longer than that to think about it, didn't you?
Yeah, it is one of those things. I think so. For those who don't, Danny's basically a slightly kind of higher profile social media account than me. He hangs about in the sort of posh, you know, the cordoned off area of nightclubs where there's a little rope and a little chair, and he sits with the pop stars and that kind of thing. And I'm in there with the punters, you know, having a nice quiet drink in an area, but not quite sort of swooning with the stars. Danny's in chats with all the famous podcasters, etc. I just hang about.
So you were getting secondary information, so it had to go to someone else before it went to you. So
I rely on you basically. If you didn't send me the information, maybe Mikey's quite good to me. Fraser's good to me as well. But yeah, otherwise I'm pretty much out on my own. But you know, it takes me probably a minute or two longer in those situations to probably react than you. And of course, most weeks I have son of a gun to look after as well, so I'm thinking about that as well, and that inevitably does create a few problems, but hopefully it'll get a bit better. Well, hopefully one day we'll have a really swish FPL last resort Discord, and Nikolai and FPL FOMO and all these other people in there, Johnny Eggs, Easy, all of these kind people who for some reason give their time up for us. Will slip me notes and post-it notes and that sort of thing. I am a post-it note person, by the way. I've got my tonight's schedule here. There, audio can't see it, but it's worth YouTube clip on its own. Really. Oh, actually, do you know what? Before we go too much further, actually, I'm going to show this one on the screen because this will come up later on. Eno, Eric, there. Good evening. You are turning into a favorite pod. So chilled. I have a lock on for Krug. Do you know the German fans? They used to do this thing. I think it was I can't remember which club he was at the time. Might be in Werder Bremen, where you know the announcer would do full, and the other half would go Krug, and it was. I'm kind of I want that to happen. I love that. He's. I'm going to talk a lot about him later, because I've got a bit of a thing for him. I mean, it might come across a bit later on, so nice you mentioned. Anyway, but yeah, welcome to everyone in the chat. But I should do this before we go on too much further. A bit of a shout out for our mini league, a bit of a subscriber type shout out, if it's possible, because as you know, we're a lowly pod. You know, we're the one that you squeeze in if you've had enough of the sort of 27 Wire episodes that you've seen that day or whatever. That's not a criticism, by the way. They're all very good. But yeah, but you know, we're the other one that slip in here, and we've got a pretty good clientele, to be fair. So anyway, DefCon 1 final drafts. That's what we're looking at today. Code green. I wish that were true. It's more code brown. It's probably. Remember, actually, that reminds me of that terrific Red Dwarf episode, you know, where they're kind of like, you know, like code red or whatever. Are you sure there? It means changing the bulb.
Absolutely sure. It does mean changing the bulb.
Please do let us know if you're big fans of Red Dwarf. Danny and I have a real thing for it. It's probably my favorite comedy, and it makes no sense. It should be bottom really, but I bloody love Red Dwarf. But yeah, mini league anyway.
Either we're under attack or we're having a disco.
Love stuff. Mini league anyway. Mini league. I think lots of people have started to join this, which is against my wishes. I told you not to join so that Danny and I would stand a chance. But there you go. I'm going to read it out for audio. Yeah, getting good at that now. I still don't know what people are asking for when they say RSS feed and Apple. I mean, I don't know what that is. And it puts me in a compromising position anyway, because all of these kind of, actually no, I can't say that here. I'll probably get banned, won't we? There are companies I have concerns about that would do our audio, but that's for another conversation and another time. But anyway, mini league code LZKI6K, all lowercase, LZKI6K, if you can't be bothered to look at the screen. So that first one is an L, despite how it looks. Join us and banish me to the bottom half. And whoever wins will, you know, get a shout out and a packet of hobnobs or something like that. So that'll come later in the season. I think we'll probably have to have a cutoff point. All the cool pods do a cutoff point, don't they? Like Christmas or something, or game week 19.
Yeah. Not having someone joining in game week 37 just because they're 10th in the world. Yeah, no.
Otherwise, let's pick someone from the chat. Genius Gamer will slip in there in game week 20 and be like, well, actually I'm number one in the world, and you know, he'll just win, and that's not okay. We're not cool with that. So yeah, we'll have a cutoff point at some point. I'll announce that. So yeah, Lico, and also if we can, you know, if you're very kind, help us to our subscriber goal. I don't know what we're actually on, Danny. I think it's about 440-ish, 430-ish,
446. Not that I'm counting. No, I want to check that. I think.
Oh, okay, 446. You know, it's still what, 48 hours to deadline. Could we get to 500? That's the aim. I mean, over the course of a season, I want to hit 1,000. This is about as aggressive as I can get. But yeah, if we can get to 500 by, I don't know, sometime around game week 1 or soon after, that would be terrific. So yeah, please do take a moment from your time, press the like button. You know, send us your goodwill if you're that kind.
Do you think everyone knows that like subscribing is free and all it literally does is tell you that like there's a video next time there's a video coming? Or do you think some people think that like subscribing?
Probably not. No, I mean, and stuff? Isn't and as well, now I don't know about this stuff and I should have read up on it, but if you hit the bell, it tells you when, it gives you an actual notification, doesn't it, as well, for the pod?
Oh,
there is something I've seen it before. Other podcasters have mentioned that you hit the bell and you get a note, and this is very boring for all the viewers, but please do press the bell, whatever that means. That's not a double entendre. But yeah,
press the bell.
Anyway, should move on to talk about things. But yeah, Mini League Code, please do join, and yeah, please do all the reshares and all the rest of it if you're feeling generous. But yeah, we're gonna go straight in. We're gonna do a bit of kind of background stuff before we get into draft talk, and then later on, as I say, we've got a spinning wheel of questions. So if you have questions, I'll sort of collect them through the course of our chat and try and stack them up for a bit later. So feel free to stick anything in the chat. Probably quite difficult for us to review entire teams. So I know a few people are doing that, and I perhaps we'll try and reply afterwards. But it's more sort of 50-50 dilemma-y type things that we're more likely to be able to answer easily. But yeah, that would be good. So let's have a quick talk about game week 1. I'll be honest, Danny, I'm naughty with game week 1, which is to say I don't really consider it that carefully, and maybe I should, because a lot of people do. So we look at this, for example, and not a great surprise, is it, to see teams like Spurs, you know, significant on the models for game week 1, Manchester City, basically a whole bunch of teams who I have very little coverage for personally. But taking a look at this, I'll just pick out a couple of things, and then you can just tell me what interested you about this. But Liverpool projected top scorers. And actually, you did refer to a good chart as well that I think Zoff had shared on one of his pods recently about game top scorers over the first 6 weeks as well. So do check that out and watch the wire for that. But yeah, Liverpool are the outstanding scorers there, followed by Spurs and Chelsea and City, the other teams over 2. In terms of clean sheet odds as well, as you can see, Liverpool probably the dominant force there, even though a lot of people are starting to remove Van Dijk from drafts. And of course, you've got Tottenham with their Burnley fixture as well. Where do you want to start with this, Danny? Did anything surprise you? Did anything take you back? Has it moved the needle for you at all?
Like you say, it's not necessarily moved it just based on Game Week 1 alone, but there are some patterns and there's always a dilemma, isn't there? Like you say, sometimes there's usually some kind of dilemma that involves some kind of like pick that looks amazing for Game Week 1, and actually he's on the screen right there, and that's definitely going to be a talking point, I think, tonight. Who isn't necessarily a great pick for the other weeks, or maybe as good as others, I don't know. Although now I'm having to question that for tonight, so come back to that in a second. But yeah, no, I don't think Zoff sent that on a group chat actually, so I don't know if he did put it on the Wire pod, but I think it was from a few weeks ago from Solio or from RobT, and it was just the goal project. It was a nice little reminder actually, because I think it might have been from a couple of weeks ago, but it was just the projections for teams' goals scored over like the first 6 to 8 weeks or so. And one of the things within that was a reminder. Let me just get it up actually, because sometimes these sorts of things slip my mind. And for example, so one of the things was Villa being 6th for goals, and you look across the games and it's like 1.6, as you can see there with Game Week 1, 1.6, 1.6, 1.7, 1.3, 2, 1.7, and it was just a bit of a reminder that it was quite consistently high for Villa. And I think that's, the relevance is obviously in that we know we've talked a lot about Watkins, but Rodgers has fallen a little bit off the radar for the last week and a half, which a week and a half in, FPL terms is like being on, the moon in Interstellar, for like, a week and a half. It's a lifetime. And so Rodgers has fallen off the radar a little bit, hasn't he? And actually now he's just come out that he's fit again today. And so I know I'm going off a bit of a tangent here, thinking about teams and players, but it's a bit of a reminder that Rodgers and I think and Villa is something that I just want to talk more about as a reminder tonight. So remind me to come back to that. So that because that does just jump out there a little bit, doesn't it? Because 1.62. I mean, no, Newcastle are struggling, but I don't know. Does that, because that's quite a lot against Newcastle, isn't it? 1.62. So it says maybe a lot about Newcastle, maybe a lot about Villa, maybe a bit of both. I don't know. And yeah, the Tottenham one jumps out because that's big. That's really big. And it's just so interesting because Tottenham have changed so much, and they'll be the most difficult, I suppose, to kind of predict and model and in terms of markets and stuff, because a lot of the players are different and the manager's different and the setup's different. But Burnley feel like quite predictable in their lack of attack, maybe. That was the general team that they were, wasn't it, last year?
Yeah.
So that feels pretty solid looking at Spurs, and it's a bit scary to me as someone who might not have any Spurs in the team. What else? Chelsea does still stand out to me quite a bit with over 2 goals against Palace, who are really good. Really good, aren't they? I don't know. Do we feel like the markets? I mean, I hate saying this because the markets are ahead of us, aren't they? In terms of just generally all the time, and it's kind of a silly thing to say. But have they maybe a Palace better than the markets think? Just because what we're seeing at the moment, they just get better and better, don't they? I don't know what jumps out to you there.
Yeah, no, I think some good things you've already pulled out. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with you that it is tricky with that Palace fixture, isn't it? Because again, Crystal Palace, look, they because they have had such a good pre-season, looked really quite decent in that Community Shield game. You do just get the feeling that they can give anyone a game, and I'm not happy about the kind of flux state that they often seem to get in transfer windows. With the kind of Newcastle moving for Mateta, whether there's any truth in that, the Gahey situation, Eze and so on, it is quite unhelpful, but still keen on them in the general sense. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they are projected to score, albeit not particularly high. The things that interest me actually, just because I think we often forget that, okay, we're building a draft, a wildcard draft essentially, and those niggling little decisions you might forget to make. And I take a look at things like Leeds are actually one of the best clean sheet odds, which is interesting to me because, well, I mean, a lot of people are going to have one on their bench or are considering, which weeks they should have their 4 million or 4 millions ready to do something. And as it turns out, I know that there's a lot of good feeling towards Everton this week because of Grealish and so on. But obviously, that's not really game week 1 relevant, is it necessarily? We don't know that they're going to be all sort of coherent and gelled. I think a lot of people might have taken out Everton players as a result of that and just want to see it for a few weeks first. So actually, Leeds' odds there are quite encouraging, I think. And also just a reminder that Arsenal are quite a good defence, aren't they? So just a reminder that, like Manchester United at home with Mbeumo, Cunha, Fernandes and co are still only projected to score 1.17. I think they will score for what it's worth, but that's interesting. And the other clean sheet, well, of course, there aren't many clean sheets predicted here. But even Forest, everyone's banging on about how great their defence are. And, I'll have one, you'll have one. I'm sure most people will have at least one. But they're still projected to concede. And we don't really know what Brentford will necessarily look like in comparison to the end of last season. But the faith is still there. They're still going on the idea that Brentford usually do score. So I think that's quite interesting. So it looks like you're going to be relying on your seed bits already, basically.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with all of that. I mean, I think the Leeds thing is pretty significant because I think I said it last pod, didn't we? Kind of shifted them in my head a little bit in terms of just separating them maybe a little bit from the other two, Sunderland and Burnley, in terms of quality. Because I think they're going to be good at home. Maybe they're still going to go down because that's how good you have to be. I mean, you have to be ridiculous to stay in the Premier League. I mean, it's absurd how good like the worst teams are now in the Premier League, or the quote, the so-called worst teams. I mean, I'm trying to think of someone like Wolves, who someone might have quite low down, and just a really, really good team, like a really good set-up team. But you look at Leeds there, and obviously they've got the home advantage against Everton. But Everton Everton is probably seen as, or should be seen as, quite a tough game. Everton are a decent team, a sort of mid-table team, aren't they? But that tells you quite a lot about Leeds, for example, when you think about, for example, their centre-backs or their 4 million options. If you've got guys who are projected just about to win against Everton, to score a goal, to pretty even with Everton, with the home advantage, and you've got a load of defenders, for example, who are 4 million with the C-bit consideration, that's pretty significant, and that helps to sort of confirm what I've been working towards in my head anyway, of the value, for example, of these 4.0 defenders, and certainly at least one from Leeds, for example, to just bring in, when they have got a good fixture and play them, and be kind of like be quite happy and confident about that in a way that we might not have been previously, where you're thinking even they've got to concede more than 2, really. They don't necessarily, but if you've got, you'd expect your lead centre backs to be in and around or getting C-bit, for example, because they're going to be up against it at home, but they're a good team, So the floor is hugely different, but again, for players who are potentially 4 million versus potentially 4-5-5 and even 5-5 players, feels a lot of value there just looking at that. And yeah, I think it just goes to show with Sunderland. Look at Sunderland, how bad. I mean, because West Ham, again, I think West Ham are probably better than maybe we realise yet, or maybe the market's rightfully so pick up on yet, because we haven't had the hard evidence. But that's what I think and feel watching West Ham and seeing them settle into a system, and with a good manager, and what I can see is good team spirit, and obviously Thingy coming back after all his problems. Just his name's left me. This is what I mean. My brain's dead today, so sorry. But what I mean, Paquetá. And Sunderland, I suppose it's. I want to reiterate, and sorry, Spence, but we have to be objective. Sunderland have, maybe this is wrong because I think Sunderland have spent a fair bit of money, right? But I'm hearing a lot of people, I mean, guys were talking about in a group chat today saying that I think Burnley are clear worst team in the league. I'm not sure really, because I think it's important to remember that Sunderland were nowhere near like the top 3 best teams in the Championship. So when you think about the gulf between Sunderland they scraped into the playoffs. This is a team who really shouldn't be in the Premier League based on the performances. You know, they were, sorry guys, but you know, it's just trying to be, that's the truth. I mean, they were nowhere near as good as Sheffield United in that playoff final, and they ended up winning. It happens, it's games of football. But so yeah, I mean, it says it there with, you know, West Ham away to them with 1.46 projected goals. And yeah, like you say, that reminder of Arsenal, it's a scary one as a United fan and anyone who owns any United assets, because although I agree, I fancy us to score, I still think we have making that breakthrough against Arsenal to score a goal or 1 goal. I just feels so tough to me, so tough, because they are so locked in. Like, you know what Arsenal are going to turn up. You know, we said it so many times, and you know, Arteta is a man possessed, and that's what manifests into the team. And you just know Gabriel's going to turn up and be like, just looking like it's playing like it's an FA Cup final, you know, playing like it's a World Cup final every game, beating people up. You just know Declan Rice is locked in, fully fit, because he's just that's the type of player he is. You know, and you know Saka is just locked in. You know, they're just going to be so on it. So that does feel scary, and that is reflected in the odds. You know, it is a bit of a reminder. It's like, oh, you know, what it's going to be like by the end of the weekend. We'll all be like, why does no one in the world own Gabriel, who's like just, you know, just blatantly, who's like got the most goal threat from set pieces, from the best set piece team in the league and the best defense in the league, and he's just going to score a 1-0 win against United and get a 15-pointer, and no one owns him.
I think there's going to be some wobbles on him on Friday. I have a feeling that that's going to be a wobble. You know, there's in each position there's a big old wobble. I think
it is crazy, because this is all in this whole context, isn't it, of defenders almost versus the C-bit guys, and Arsenal defenders have been the biggest losers in that, which probably rightfully so. When you can get cheaper and you can get that floor of C-bit points, it's huge. It's huge in terms of some certainty of some points. And definitely, yeah, Arsenal defenders. I mean, before the game changes, I was thinking, just like everyone else, Gabriel is literally probably the second name on the team sheet, or the first name on the team sheet, not going anywhere, never transferring him out all season. So yeah, that's definitely something we're going to talk about today. Obviously, with drafts, we're thinking about those defenders, and are there any? And it's certainly massively important for me in decisions. Are there any defenders that maybe got your sort of attacking threat versus the C bit? But yeah, before I don't know, you come in because you've got something to say. But
no, well, all I was going to say is that personally, I don't know whether this is true for you, but it's probably the area of my own squad that's most likely to wobble and change, you know, because there are 2 or 3 variations I've been playing with this week, and you know, I don't know which one I'm most happy with yet. I think everything else is pretty locked. One thing, and you have this situation as well, one thing essentially has determined a lot of everything else. And I don't think I'm going to relent on that. I can't really see. I've got to the point, you know, you have to at some point stop looking at something, because I know that whether that's a good logic or not is something to be discussed. But there is a point at which you have to put certain things away in order to recognize that, you know, you're happy with the basic structure of something. At least that's how it is in my case. Because I've just fleetingly got any time this week. You know, I've got about an hour every morning and an hour in the evening, maybe, to have a little play with it. But really, I'm sure other people are like this. This is a popular week for whether it be holidays or whatever it is. It's actually pretty hard to find the time. You've probably done most of the work. And actually, just a little bit of advice to people out there on this. I'm not going to pretend to be the be all and know it all about this, but there does have to be a time where, at some point before deadline, just give yourself a gift of an hour or two, not affected by what anyone else says. You know, you do have to do that, because if nothing else, you know, I think someone said it earlier this week, there's genuinely about sort of 45, 50 legitimate picks at the moment, maybe more. And they've priced it so well, it has to be said. They just have done a good job with it. And it's slightly confusing, you know, what with the C-bits and the DefCon and everything else. So there's so many ways to play it right at the start. You know, I could do a second draft with completely different players and the third draft, and they would be pretty much just as good. And it's just the way it is. So you should give yourself a gift. Don't just listen to what person X says on X. That's a bad way of putting it. Give yourself a chance, because, well, it's your game, and you're ruining it for yourself if you just literally put in the copy team, etc. It is the way.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is that the way you feel? I think you strike me as a man who, at some point before deadline, just gives himself a little bit of quiet time in a sort of, in a little chapel or something, sort of surrounded by stained glass and just concentrating.
Massively. Like, I won't scroll on X unless I've posted my team already, and the deadline's passed, or I'm just so confident and set, which generally I am. Pretty much that's what I do. I pick a team, and then I make myself kind of robust against all the inevitable biases that come in my way. And I think it's the absolute last thing you should do if you're susceptible to that, which everyone does. Everyone does it, and it's why you always end up with more and more groupthink, and you end up in the safety of the herd, because it's kind of natural. You've done all this thinking about a team, but then you get used to players and picks, and you've got a team, and then suddenly a lot of people go on X, whatever. That's when they suddenly see everyone and all the favorite content creators post their team, and or maybe the analytic guys and everyone who's led by models, and it's natural for you to then, for your focus to then shift to these new players and the what ifs and the oh no, and what if it all goes wrong, or what if they're right, and it's natural to go to that self-doubt, and so you can't do that. You can't do that because you've been thinking about all this players and making decisions for a reason. You've been going through that process for a reason. And actually, if you are making last minute changes based on anything you see on X, your process is wrong. And your process is wrong, and you've got a lot of things to learn to be a better FPL player. Sorry. I don't really know how that sounds horrible, but that's the truth. And I'm not. I've got loads of things to learn to be a better FPL player, obviously. But you know what I mean? There's no other way of putting it. Like, you can't be. That's the only thing that leads to regrets. You want to shoot me down here for saying that, don't you? But
this is a good time to say like and subscribe for the good vibes. You're a bad FPL manager.
I told you we shouldn't have potted tonight. You've got tired, Danny, and like horrible things are going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, he's been in 40-degree sun. He's been enjoying French strong beer and all the things that come with that. So no, it's absolutely fine. A bit of grouchiness plays pretty well here.
But it's so true. It is so true. Just not to labour the point, but nobody. We all have less of a clue in Game Week 1 than any other time. And that's true of everything. It's true of the models, and it's true of the markets. It's true of everything. We have less of a clue than any other time. So it's and still another lesson for me to kind of reiterate was when we had our sort of post-mortem pod with Alan from FML, was kind of that point about remember when I was sort of looking at mine and Harry's team and about so many routes to points, and just so many. I know it's like a really obvious. In fact, I hate even saying those words because it just sounds so like platitudinal or whatever. And it's just like, but it's. I mean, I'm listed off. Do you remember? I just listed off like 150, 200 points worth of players randomly that, like, Harry, for example, had differently to me, and we kind of finished in the same, or roughly the kind of same rank from completely different positions. And it was a reminder to me, for example. I remember last Game Week 1 overthinking that Wood spot and just leaving that till too late, and then ended up changing it to Muniz or going with Muniz, kind of because I wasn't really sure and it was felt a bit safe, and that was definitely kind of a mistake on my part in terms of my process, but also. It was that, like, it isn't that scary. It doesn't matter if you get one slightly right or slightly wrong at all, because there's so many more things going on in your team than just those. So it should give you confidence to pick, to pick whoever you feel, and even if it is slightly different. Anyway, so going on with myself, but you know what I mean. But it's a really important point.
It is a good point, and I've got some good news for you, Danny. It's going to cheer you right up.
Yes, Heather. Yes, Heather.
Yes, Heather. Legend. Heather's joined the mini league. If everyone could just be more like Heather and follow that lead, I think it's a good opportunity to join the mini league. So well done, Heather. just I'm going to share a couple of things that just that we've noticed in the last sort of week whilst we've been away. We just sort of share graphics with each other that we think might be just worth a shout out, that might help you with your process. So not that one because you've already seen it, RobT, Solio, etc. Good stuff. But yeah, I'll make this. Well, you might have to zoom in a bit with this one. I should have shared it as a separate image, but we found this some images that we found quite useful lately, just to make things a little clearer in the mind. This one's a really good one. Tom Hadley has been sharing some great stuff lately. I think he's joined the scout team. Actually, yeah, they're welcome to sponsor us if you send any sort of brown envelopes of cash our way. But this was quite useful. Double-digit hauls for defenders, which included DefCon plus bonus points and all the kind of stuff there. And yeah, there's 3 or 4 players right at the top there who were floating in and around our drafts. Murillo, Cucurella and Munoz right at the top there, with 5 double-digit hauls for the first 2 and 4 for Munoz. So yeah, really strong returns there. And yeah, one at the top who everyone is talking about. I can't actually have a sort of rational conversation with anyone about the Forest defenders at the moment. We'll come to that a bit later on, but it's very difficult. I'm so attached to Milenkovic. It's really difficult for me because I love him and he's so, if in doubt, pick the tall player. I saw someone give that advice earlier this week and I quite like that. But Cucurella is someone who, I know we both love. Quite tricky because, of course, I know that he's not one of the C-bit darlings, but of course you only had to watch those last 2 friendlies to see what the man was up to. He's just insane, isn't he? Because I think the funny thing about him is, right, that generally you look at these kind of attacking defenders and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, he was at the back post. If only they'd found him. He's not at the back post, is he? He's standing right, between the penalty spot and the edge of the 6-yard box saying, I'm here. Doesn't matter about Delap or, any of these other guys. I'm here. And also the runs that he does are not normal runs, are they? They look like a sort of computer. I don't know what computer game I'm thinking of here, but he just runs about 3 times the speed of anyone else, even though he's not necessarily the fastest player in the world, just to get in the spot where the striker is supposed to stand. It doesn't make any sense, but he's there,
Are we still talking about Milenkovic? I'm getting confused.
No, we're talking about Cucurella. Sorry, apologies. Yeah.
Oh, Cucurella, yeah. Oh, right. No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Oh my God, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we need to talk lots about Cucurella.
But I don't know about you. We'll come to this because we look at our drafts in just a second, and I'm trying to come to a sort of comfortable balance between the new an unusual world of C-bits and the old, sort of more appealing world of just genuine goal threat and the rest of it, the things that makes you get out of your chair and that sort of thing. And it makes Cucurella and Munoz and so on very difficult to give up. I know that we should all be sort of goody two shoes and pick Tarkowski, etc. But
well, that's what I mean. Like we were talking about this today. Like Baker and Zoff and Alar, and I'm saying the name because the big players, who content creators, and I don't want to. Hardly anyone watches this, so it won't matter anyway. I don't want to, kind of say something they don't want me to. But it's like we're like, oh man, we don't like this C bit. The more it goes on, you're just like, this is crap. This, what is going on here? Why have people got Tarkowski, and Murillo instead of, and not being able to look at Cucurella or I don't know who else, those kind of attacking fullbacks, or I don't know, goal scoring centre back. And it's like, geez, man, this feels actually early on, and I don't want to put it down on anything. It's fine. I feel like it's something different, and if it's going to be the C-bit season, I'm not sure if it's going to be here to stay. I'm not sure because I don't think it should be, and I think they'll probably realise that. I don't know how long it'll take, but or this version of it, because it is a bit boring, and I don't really get it, because you do need to be engaged and tune in and know about these tables and look at the stats or find out whatever. So I'm sure there's lots of stuff on the site, but you do need to have access to a lot of things to really know that. I know for a fact there's going to be loads of people in my mini league that turn up and they're not, none of them have got a Murillo or a Tarkowski or an Anderson, because they don't really know necessarily about CBIT or its impact or about models or about who's really good for it last season. They're not going to have it. So how are they going to feel if those players do kick in with loads of 10s and 11s and they're like, fuck's sake, man, what's going on here with the game? How come they've all got these CBIT defenders and I haven't? What's DefCon? You know, I can't see a lot of people being very happy about that. But yeah, you know, I wasn't happy about it when it came out because I said it straight away. I don't like this. I don't like it because it's more information for models which are strong enough. And the more you give them, the better edge they've got. And I don't like that. I think they've got enough. I love models and I use them. You know, they're all great and, you know, look at them and stuff. But they had enough. Anyway, I don't want to go on with myself. But you know what I mean? It's just like, I can't believe that it just feels a little bit boring with some of these players.
Do you know what? I think there's the parallel that I'll give here. It's probably quite an unfair one. It sort of reminds me in a sense a bit like when VAR kicked in, you know, where the natural joy of the moment of hugging the bloke next to you in the stands that you don't know is maybe been tempered a little bit. And I know it's not quite the same as the CBIT business, the DefCon business, and it's exciting in a way because it's new and all the rest of it, and it gives us a new thing to work out, a puzzle to work out. But just to the unabated glory of we should be picking Juve, you know. We should be picking, you know, over Anderson. We should be picking, you know, I mean, there's loads of great examples here, aren't there? We should be picking Cucurella instead of Murillo, etc. It should be obvious to us that, you know, we're looking for those guys. And
yeah, I mean, even someone like Ryan Aït-Nouri, just, you know, and there's loads like you say, but Ryan Aït-Nouri, that's an interesting thing. You know, I guess he maybe would have been, the prices would have been different, maybe it would have been a bit more expensive. But an attacking Man City defender, because it's great. Because are you going to go there? What do you think about the minutes? You know, well worth going there. I think the minutes are going to be good, or, you know, it's Man City type thing. Well, that's kind of gone now, isn't it? Because there's just so much extra weight to the not going there side when you've got the guaranteed not just minutes of someone else, but CBITs of someone else, you know. So it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of hilarious. I mean, how fewer teams have got someone like Aït-Nouri, who's probably fairly nailed for Man City and super attacking fullback. So, yeah, like you say, Diouf's a great example. And people will have a mix. People have got a bit of a mix, and I might have, so we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. It's just,
yeah, I think my own kind of process with this is you know, I'm sort of walking a little bit of a balancing act. I mean, I think with something like 4.5s, for example, when I was looking at this earlier this week, it makes quite a lot of sense to me to be and the 4s to go for the guys that are quite CBIT heavy. You know, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the 4.5s and the 4s, but it's when it comes to the 5.5s and the 6s, it feels a little bit more difficult to take, doesn't it? I don't know. Particularly the 5.5s, because obviously loads of really good ones going about with a lot of good credentials, but it does go against your instinct. And this is, you know, neither of us are the most racy managers. Anyway, grump over. Let's have a look at some drafts, see where we're at. And of course, this is all subject to change. But if you give me a moment, I'll see what I can do. Let's just get rid of that first of all. And not very good transition there. But we're going to stick yours up first of all, Danny. I will, again, just caveat this to give people a chance to, you know, if anyone's fast forwarding, because they're like, oh, what's Danny doing? You know, they won't do that with me, but they're like, oh, God, yeah. What's he up to? Oh. So, yeah, this is the good... Actually, yeah. So, if you do like that, why not like and subscribe and all of that as well? Danny, whoever was first here will probably make it look like the other one followed suit. So what's really interesting about this is that I've got a couple of dilemmas I wanted to talk through in my team, and you've kind of done one version of it, and I've done another at this point in time. So it's quite interesting. Let me just read it out for audio. Yeah, that's right. Very professional here. Kelleher, currently still flagged, which is quite annoying. Cucurella, Williams for Nottingham Forest, Rodon, who of course has a nice clean sheet odds for game week 1. Power midfield, Palmer, Salah, Wirtz. What are we saying with that, by the way? Are we Wirtz people? Wirtz? Yes, I don't know. I can't remember how it's said. Someone said it really well on the podcast.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Anyway, that guy, whoever it was, Bruno and the reindeer in midfield. Undecided how to say that yet either, actually. Reinders? I saw him play against West Ham actually 2 or 3 years back. I think it was for AZ Alkmaar. And I remember him standing out as a really high quality player. I think Kirkes was in the team at the same time. They were like quite legitimately a good team. And really, really good to watch. Some really good ball playing players on that team. Anyway, and up front, Watkins and Fulkrug. And then we got on the bench Dubravka, still flagged, Anderson, Seabit Monster, E-Steve, and Gooey. That's the best I can do. Sorry. But where do you want to start? Talk us through where you're at. How settled are you? Where are the problem spots? What are the decisions you feel comfortable and uncomfortable with?
All right. So first of all, there's 0.5 in the bank here.
Yes, for anyone wondering.
Yeah. So that sort of tells you a few things about how I'm maybe settled in some spots and less in others. I mean, I'm definitely having a little bit of a wobble at this stage, and this is always the way. I mean, that's what tends to happen, isn't it? You make a team and you get with me anyway, you get fairly settled or you feel like you're happy. And then maybe others are making lots of changes, or again, things like, people being fit. I don't know what, not necessarily Solanke, for example, who played last night, but that changes things for some people, and Rodgers and stuff. And I'm having a bit of a wobble, and it is tough seeing so many other teams and that are not like this and that have strengths in other areas. It's definitely a bit of a wobble. And I think you referred to it, so I've not seen your team yet, as you know. I'm literally no idea what your team is, but you were referring to something that sounded to me like similar to me, and probably a lot of people, is Fernandez is the kind of player there that's the key cog to it going one way or another in terms of structure and just having a different team, or a team like most others, because most people have got two of, I guess, from what I can see on X, is most people are saying like two or of like Watkins, Wirtz and Fernandez type of thing, or not all three anyway. Am I right in that? That's kind of what I'm seeing.
I would say so, yeah.
So, every team has its obvious strengths and obvious weaknesses, and it does look very appealing to me now when I see these other teams as well. That, for example, I see teams that don't have Fernandez, and then obviously typically they'll have maybe a 7.5 striker, which has definitely become a thing because there are lots of them at the moment, and they'll have better defenders than me, and maybe keeper or whatnot. So, not sure where we should start, but what?
Well, let's start from the defense and work our way forward there. So, I mean, Kelleher is going to be a decision that you're probably going to have to make on Friday, because you're not going to hear anything until then. If it all goes tits up and he's not expected to play, I don't think that should be a problem. I would say I'm sort of 80% certain it's going to be absolutely fine. But what would you do if you hear, at sort of 11:30 on Friday morning, there's a little bit of a presser, and Big Keith comes up and says, is he an Irish accent, or I'm not sure actually.
I think so, yeah.
Well, I'm not going to attempt it here because I'll look bad. But if he comes up and says, basically, he's in trouble, we're going to stick the other lad who I've already forgotten, Valdemarson, in the nets. What's your switch there? Is it a change of price, or because you got $500,000?
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah,
it is a tough one because a lot of people are on sells and they feel very comfortable, and I can totally understand why, because you just have to look at the fixtures, and you sort of, if you're looking at fixtures and you feel good about, for example, 3 clean sheets in the first 6 or something like that, whatever it is with Forest, that's really nice, isn't it, for a keeper? And I kind of contradict myself sometimes, because on the one hand, I say, I think both of these things are true, is that I would say that keeper points are my favourite points in the game. And they are really. They are. You just feel like you're starting. You just feel like you're just beginning the week with a head start. If you get a keeper clean sheet, it just always feels like bonus points. If you got an 8 or 9 points or more, it's just like, oh my! You basically know you can't have a bad week. Pretty much, typically, if you got a keeper haul, you've had a good week, which is kind of ridiculous because at the same time, people always say, well, it's the kind of least important position, and I think I don't think that's necessarily true, but what I think what they're saying is, which is true, is that it's the hardest position to predict. And I've said that for a while. There's no real logic there. You don't really know what's going to happen or how it's going to, it's all about the systems and the setup and how many saves they're going to get. And, if Kelleher gets no clean sheets in 6, but he might make 7 or 8 saves in 5 of those games and save 1 penalty and get a load of 3s and 4s and a 10 or 11 with no clean sheets. So it's annoying because it's the most enjoyable points, but then therefore it's almost the one that gets the least attention, and it's also because it's the one that involves the least logic. So,
well, actually, I was thinking about this earlier this week, and I got some real bum logic with sort of bargain basement strikers, midfielders, and then a goalkeeper, which is to say, I'm always quite keen on picking if it comes down to it, and I'm not sure. Like my other 4.5, for example, that I quite like and always have done, just because they've been nice to me in the past, is Sarr at Wolves. Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't really seen anyone pick him, but one of the reasons is I don't really want 3 of their players and can't imagine that I will do. And Brentford this season feel like I don't mind using a spot there, whereas Bournemouth, for example, as good as Petrovic might be as a second option, they're definitely a team, and I'm worried about them because I've taken them all out, even though I said I was going to start with probably 2. There are none there at the moment. But they're a team where I'm not going to rue. I would rue their spots if I was using them in goalkeeper spots. So I think that's the other appealing thing about Kelleher to me is I don't care for their defenders. I don't care for any of their players actually at this point in time. I think they'll do fine. But with Thiago now a little bit of a risk because we still don't know what's happening with Vista. They're bringing someone new in, aren't they? And then there's Atara. It might work out eventually, but it's not looking great at this point in time. So I think Kelleher still stands as being a good 4.5 as far as it goes. And like you, I just don't give the 4.5 goalkeeper anywhere near as much credence as I probably should. It's the last thing on my mind. A lot of people picking 5s though. What do you think about that generally? Everyone seems to be picking 5s. I've seen Sells and Sanchez and so on.
Again, it's really tough because, I can see. I mean, I think Sanchez isn't really. I can totally see it with Chelsea because they've got good fixtures and they've got really good defense. But I don't think he's really an option now because there's all this talk about Donnarumma, isn't there? He could easily go there because that would make a lot of sense because he's an amazing keeper for one. And I think the manager likes him or whatever, and they don't. Sanchez isn't the most popular, so that could easily happen. So I just wouldn't go there because you could easily end up with no keeper or just Dubravka or whatever. That's what it looks like to me at the moment. So that's one thing as a caveat. But otherwise, honestly, I was going to say that if I was to go for another 4.5, then yes, Sarr as well. It might be where I look. But it is tough. Like I'm looking at, we've got. If you just flick to, or is it easy for you to flick to Lego Mane's, or have you got that up here? The fixture.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Hang on. Oh, look at that. There you are. So this is first 8 fixtures, and this is in table order, basically, I suppose, isn't it, from last season and the promoted teams. And this is with compliments of our good friend Dan Lagomane. So thanks, Dan, if you are listening. If you're not, then I'll find some other way to thank you. But yeah, always follow him for his great sort of hop on, hop off fixture charts, that sort of thing. He's really good.
Yeah, and I just think it's quite nice from a keeper point of view. For me, when I'm looking for a keeper, and this is now I'm talking myself out of something now. So, but this is the kind of thing I do look for with a keeper. It's not necessarily like a stretch of fixtures or stretch of it is, but not necessarily like a stretch of good fixtures or okay fixtures. It's more about like how many really stand out to me with a keeper or with certain defenders. How many fixtures really jump out as like, okay, there's a really good chance of a clean sheet there in my mind, where you feel really kind of good. And that would be really nice if that pays off, because again, it's your keeper, like I just said, it's your favourite points, those little cheeky 8 and 9 pointers that come out of nowhere. And you do look at Forest and you can see why so many have got sells and why I might end up going there, because those 4 that jump out in the green, and this is why it's quite a nice visual from Lego. You got Brentford at home, And again, trying to simplify these fixtures, and it just jumps out to me as like, I do feel quite good about Brentford over the season. I think they're going to be pretty solid, for lots of reasons. I think they've got a good back four. They've got a great couple of centre halves in Collins and Van der Ven, who've got a good partnership. They've got the fullbacks back. I think they've now got a very good keeper in Kel Heller, and kind of a solid midfield players, and Jensen and Yarmulke and stuff, and Damsgaard. But I think they're going to struggle from an attacking sense, at least to begin with, because we know they've got Thiago, who I think could be good, but he's not done any. He's not played for a year and a half. He hasn't scored yet for Brentford. They've lost. They're not going to have Whistler. They've lost Bumo. They've got Sharda's injured. Carvalho looks a bit lightweight. Lewis Potter doesn't look like he can play left wing, whatever his name is, the defender. So it kind of screams to me that that Brentford could well score, but if they do, it's probably one. And if they do, I feel like it's probably going to be from a set piece. And this is why it's like Collins, by the way, does jump out to me as a pick, because one thing we know about Keith Andrews is that he was the best set piece coach in the Premier League last year. We're bound to see that play out in Brentford. So you feel like they're going to be sort of like solid and really battling, against it all, but struggling to score goals. They might get one from a set piece, is what you kind of see. So they could easily be a clean sheet, could be a 0-0. West Ham, I think West Ham, I'm not going to slate West Ham because I think they've improved, like I've said already, and that's not necessarily like you don't necessarily look at it and think home bank, because you wouldn't, because you've got a front two of Bowen and the legend that is, full Krug.
Krug. Sorry.
Yeah. But Burnley and Sunderland especially. So that's when so you're looking at 3 or 4 there now. Burnley again, clean sheet specialists, 5 men behind the ball. I look at Neil's predicted lineups for Burnley, and the first thing I see that jumps out, if it's still like that when I had a look with Burnley, is they're playing a 5-4-1, and that's Burnley. I know they're away at Spurs, but not many teams in the Premier League go out in a 5-4-1 now. And I'm not saying they necessarily will do that, but this is Burnley, and it's the sort of team that are perfect for Forest. You feel, because they're, Forest themselves are a really robust, strong team that beat people up and just kind of scrape 1-0s. And Chris Wood can handle his, all the Burnley defenders kind of thing. You know what I mean? So and Sunderland, like I've already said, Sunderland are the worst team in the league, I think, until proven otherwise. So that just, you look at that and think, shit, yeah, you know what? Do I really actually want to go somewhere else where I'm sort of looking at the whole team and a shot stopper in Kelleher and 4.5s who could be good, when you're looking at 4 fixtures there and you think, put yourself in the shoes when you're not on. When you're every week, you've got to go in against someone who's got a Forest defender and Sells, and they've got Burnley or they've got Sunderland. It's not going to feel good, is it? You're going to feel like you're up against it. And that
it certainly is if you're you're skipping out on these sort of mega hauls that Murillo is going to pull out from every. I swear everything I've basically half of all content that I've seen says Murillo is going to get 12 points a game. It's been like that all week, and of course, as someone who who, other than my wife and you, my 2 favorite people in the world, obviously, Milenkovic is obviously third. He's my kind of holiday romance guy. And I spurned him too often last year. He was on the bench scoring 8 points every week. So find it very difficult to part myself from him. Just a quick word on it seems we're talking defense more generally as well as keepers. I do think if Potter comes out tomorrow or in the press conferences and says, "Yep, Hermansen, he's ready to go, and he's looking really good, and he's going to start." I mean, I can't imagine he will say it in blatant terms. He's a good option. He's a really good option. I'm really pleased about that signing. He's not like a world beater, but he's definitely an upgrade on Areola. He can use his feet. He's going to pick up a lot of save points for sure. Broadly, and West Ham's defence second half of the season, the underlying numbers definitely improved. I think they were 9th overall in the second half of last season, so it's not bad, for XGC. So think sort of Fulham territory or something like that. So I definitely think Hermansen's a decent pick. He's a good draft pick if you, because I was doing one last night and they were down. I know loads of other people with 12 picks through and a draft last night, and the website crashed. There are loads of people. So annoying. I had Bruno as well. Oh.
shit.
I know, terrible. I hated it. Pep was in it, and he got Haaland. Anyways, it's a different conversation for another time. But yeah, Hermansen is definitely worth a look. The other thing I forgot with keepers, by the way, I forgot that Martinez is suspended, isn't he?
Is he?
I think so. Yeah, I'm sure I saw it because I'm looking at draft yesterday, and he's suspended until something like the 23rd of August. So he misses game week 1, which actually is kind of annoying because, of course, Aston Villa have some really good fixtures, and I'm assuming he's a 5 as well. And that would have been that's not a bad shout, is it? Actually, yeah, it would have been a good shout, but unfortunately, that's probably going to be too difficult for people now. But those people who are on Consa as their sort of standard 4.5, not too C-bitty, but they're just going for those clean sheets and of course, Consa's surprisingly a dab hand in the opposition box. I think sometimes as well as overlooked a bit from that point of view. But he's got some good fixtures there as well. And let's go back to your draft because I feel like we've laboured this a bit too long. So defence for Danny, Cucurella, Williams, and Rodon, and then Anderson and Esteve on the bench. I'm going to say that a different way every time, just for effect. Yeah, what are you thinking at the moment then? Are there any? What can you see yourself changing anything there? Would you spend the 0.5 there somewhere? Would you split the Cucurella money?
Let me explain the 0.5 and why I may well change lots of things, and I'll explain what might change and how it might change, because I've got to be happy with all the positions and what I feel like moving forward and how robust the team is and what it looks like in the weeks to come. And I've got to be happy with all those things. I've got to find the path that allows me to feel happy about all the things that make me most nervous, or that I'm not, so it could be anything. But I think likely the midfield stays as it is. So I'll come on to that in a second. So, but it could still, the team could still be very different. So even just talking about the goalkeeper then. So the 0.5 extra, certainly a big part of that. I mean, I've never actually managed to do that before, and maybe I probably won't again. And I certainly don't like to book in transfers. But I quite liked it because a lot of it kept coming up. Some drafts that had that 0.5 and just that little extra bit of flexibility. And it was kind of, if it was initially, for example, Cucurella was a 5.5. I'll talk about some of those options, and then that 0.5 gave me the option. For example, so Fulkrug is someone who is the obvious one there that stands out. That I do really like game week 1, but the West Ham's fixtures after that are not great, which you don't want. Simple as that. And I don't typically like to book in a transfer, but I think they could do really well, West Ham. And I'm like, because the only other one with a 0.5 extra that I would consider is Strand Larsen, who I think is good. I think he's a very good pick.
He's good, yeah.
So, and then that's the obvious one is that 0.5 is I don't want to lock myself into Fulkrug and a West Ham striker, for example, or a 6 mil.
Yeah, okay.
Because you could just get stuck. You could get injured and you could be rubbish, and they've got the poor fixtures. I don't want to get stuck there. So that 0.5 is just allowing me to kind of think, and so that could easily be Strand Larsen, and then that's gone. So that's then I have issues there because I'm thinking about 5.5 defenders and who I want, who I've not got, who I might want to get to. The obvious one is Munoz in game week 4 when they've got Sunderland at home in game week 4 and then West Ham away or something like that. But a couple of good fixtures where I'm like, I've got to put myself in the shoes of game week 4 and how happy. And ideally, I'd have Munoz now from game week 1 and be able to bench him, but that's not really an option at the moment with the structure that I'm going with. So it's how do I get there if I want to get there, and maybe I won't. Maybe I won't be able to. But so I mean, for me, I keep coming back to 2 4.0s. So that's where I'll start with in this draft. I keep coming back to having 2 4.0s because it gives me more money for the rest of the players. And they just, as I've said before, they offer a lot of value. They offer an awful lot of value. Steve, apparently, I've not even looked into his C-bit, but apparently he's big on the models for C-bit.
It's pretty good, yeah. I think it's just under 9.
Okay, so great. I like
he needs 10, right, to get the threshold. So you tend to assume that he's going to hit it a reasonable amount.
And I mean, with these centre backs playing in a different league, they're going from the best, from the best 3 teams in the league to the worst 3 teams in the league. So everything's going to be different for their team and the players and who does what and how much C-bit and all that sort of stuff. But you've got a nailed centre back in a team that's going to be doing a lot of defending. So even without looking at the models and the C-bit stuff, that just looks good to me. And even if it wasn't good last year, it could easily be good this year. But he's nailed, and obviously he's got Sunderland at home in game week 2, which is really nice. And it's one of those ones that doesn't it allows you to sort of bench boost. I think I probably would rather have, if I was only going with one 4.0, it probably would be a Leeds 4.0. Because of what I said, that Leeds, I think they're going to be really good, and they've got some good fixtures, and you can kind of rotate, and there's just value there with these centre backs. I mean, I looked at Goodmanson, by the way, the Leeds fullback, because he's someone I've not really seen mentioned, and I was just kind of looking through the 4.0s. But again, it's not got the C bit. But I looked at his record. His record's pretty crazy, this is why I messaged to Spence about it before, didn't I, in our group? Because he's got, so in the Eredivisie, he played 83 games as a fullback and got 29 returns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're talking like bonkers. And then in Serie A, which is, I think, is where he came from more recently, he played 71 games, scored 21, and got 6 assists.
Is he a penalty taker? What the hell?
Wait.
That can't be right.
No, I'm looking at the wrong guy. Can we edit all that out, please?
Yeah. Ignore that. Like and subscribe. We're on the hoof.
I told you my brain was dead. I'm looking at Goodmanson on here.
This is my fault.
I'm looking at the wrong guy. Somebody said he had really good attacking numbers, so I quickly looked a second ago, get it up on the pod, and I was like, hang on a minute. That says he's had 20-odd returns in 75 games. So anyway, I don't think that's him. So forget all that. But apparently he has got a very good attacking threat. Anyway, and my point was, I'm still not going to go there because he doesn't have the C-bit stuff and he's not a centre-back. So it doesn't seem worth it to me. You're looking it up now. What are his actual numbers?
It's not looking good. Your credentials have been absolutely
besmirched. He's not in the team.
He came from Lille, where he scored 4 goals in 103 appearances.
Really?
And then Groningen. How do you say that? I don't know. And then Helmstad before that.
I told you. So there we are. I'm taking that one for the team. Right.
I think he might have. Yeah, he can operate in midfield, by the way. So that could be one of the reasons why when he was playing in Sweden, he had much better goal return. So I suspect that's part of it.
That's absolutely hilarious. I told you my brain was dead today.
Right. And
so anyway, that's actually hilarious because that even just says, right, that even if I had thought a defender could get that many returns, bear in mind it was like thinking that it'd come from the Dutch league, that someone could get that many returns, and I still wouldn't pick them at 4.0 because he doesn't have any C bit. That says it all.
I'll be honest with you. My favourite. I'm just going to have to share this.
Yeah, please do.
From Simon Baker, 21 goals and 71 appearances for a 4 million defender. Not enough value for me.
That's hilarious. I did genuinely think it was like League 2 in like the Dutch league.
And Mr. the Viper is saying Albert Goodmanson is a striker for Fiorentina. Look, we can't. This is not. You're not paying us here. This is
anyway. Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Smash the buttons. It's also worth saying. I mean, my favourite Leeds defender is the guy that's bloody missing for game week 1, which is really annoying. And a massive 6'3" guy. I watched a clip of him, and he's prime Milenkovic. He's that guy. So if I could cover him for game week 1, I would be sorely tempted, but making it work is a bit of a pain.
Now I am opening a beer because this is gonna give me my second win that I need.
Is it Skinny?
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, Skinny is a type of beer.
Right, so let me get back. So either way, Leeds 4.0. So first of all, there's Bijol, isn't there, who is suspended game week 1, who everyone says has actually got better attacking threat than Rodon, or better for C-bit, than Rodon maybe, and potentially attacking threat. But he's suspended game week 1, and you don't really know. He's a new signing, so as far as I understand it, Rodon's pretty nailed in that team as a centre back, so that's good enough for me. You have to play. I'm not picking him necessarily because it's game week 1. Could easily play, for example, Anderson or wherever you've got as your 4.5 here. But anyway, so the more and more I play around with it, I'm just like, why I'm not seeing enough value in going to, for example, 2 4.5s and rotating around when you can get this C bit from these 4.0 guys.
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. Is that I just feel the value there with these guys. I mean, I'm happy to play him there in game week 1. Again, that says it all. I have to look at Rodon and kind of the models and stuff, but the floor is there. The C-bit points now, it just changes everything. So for me, I quite like that structure because again, to me, it's really obvious, but when you've got, say, for example, 2 4.0s, I feel like I've just got 13 players where all the money's going. I'm just thinking about 13 other players. I can spread my cash around and get the most from the other guys and still be happy to, if I get an injury and I've got 2 4.0s, I don't really mind if I've got a player 4.0 because I'm losing. What I'm losing out on is maybe a 4.5, defender on the bench or a 5.0. And do we really know how much difference that's going to be to a promoted side centre back who's going to be, getting loads of CBIT points and whatnot? So I just like that. It helps me to just focus the money in the team. So then we've got.
Can I just interrupt very quickly? Is that what one also name to shout out there, because he's just been announced as a 4 million defender. Sunderland have just signed a centre back who also I think will be quite CBIT friendly, and he's 4 million. And of course they have really good fixtures. It's just, well, one, they're not as good as Leeds probably, and then secondly, again, he probably won't be ready for game week 1, but he's worth a look. Now I can't remember his name, but it sounds a bit like Al Dente. So if you remember that, look it up somehow. You'll be
why
able
you were
to find
saying that before, right? I get it now. I didn't know why you were saying that earlier.
That makes sense. I'm just going to sort of, because I'm aware that I should be sort of firing questions and views at you. Nico, not affected by the sort of Simicast / Rico Lewis type rumours that Leif Davis, etc., are all linked with Nottingham Forest. You're not too fussed about
that? No, I don't think so. I wouldn't overthink that one. Nico Williams has looked brilliant to me for Forest. All the time that he's played last season, he's looked really good in pre-season. I mean, you can see. I also just kind of have this sort of niggling thing in the back of my head with Nico Williams. I mean, first of all, so also there was another image from Tom Hadley, is it? That was, because there were many, weren't there, that you could kind of shape in different ways and look at, and then what was this one? It was like which defender had at least or hit 4 or more points. And suddenly, last season, which is quite nice, in terms of a floor and how many times did they actually get at least 4 points in a game. And Nico Williams is suddenly third there with 57% of the time, just behind Milenkovic, which is an awful lot, behind Branthwaite and Milenkovic, that was it. 16 occasions. First of all, you can look at these sort of different versions of these things, and they can kind of. And I think he played fewer games, didn't he, than the other guys? He only had like 35 appearances. I don't know how many of those were starts for Nico Williams, but he played fewer games as well. Don't forget. So, but yeah, I kind of think with Nico Williams, first of all, he's looked really attacking in pre-season, for what it's worth. Kind of really far forward. I quite like that. Again, this is the sort of team that puts, getting the balls into the box to big Christopher. I do like the kind of the tackles thing for fullbacks a little bit in terms of bonus as well. Is it the fact that it's just tackles, isn't it? Tackles 1 now rather than net tackles 1 for every, gets you, what is it, an extra bonus? It tends to be quite good for fullbacks, as I would have thought, as well, that push forward and that are kind of trying to win the ball back if they lose it or making more tackles.
So for example, Munoz comes out okay actually, because he is, as you say, pretty high and aggressive in his pressing and that sort of thing. I think he would have got 14 extra points from memory, something like that. Nico is the best in his position at that at the tackles, as you say. So I think what lends itself to him as well, the fixtures obviously for Forest are pretty good, aren't they? But these are the ones that Nico you think could keep pace with the centre backs in comparison. Like if it were a more mixed bunch of fixtures, or you're going very long term in your window, I would easily pick the centre backs over Nico. But I think with the good quality fixtures and the extra attacking, you tend to think that might help you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with those sort of fixtures, potentially you would think might help with those. You'd think they'd be fairly dominant, or he'd be able to get forward in quite a few of those games. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I prefer Williams to Murillo. This is what I mean. You can see with this 0.5 how it's been sort of circling around my team, that extra 0.5 cash, in the fact that it's there for full Krug. Williams has clearly been Murillo. Maybe when Cucurella was a 5.5, or Porro, or one of the other guys, and I've had to, and it was kind of there to give me choice at 0.5, because I was looking at these guys and going, well, what if I do want a 6.0? What if I do really want Cucurella? What if I do need to put full Krug up, which is likely, I may not even start with him. All that kind of stuff is that I'm trying to move it around, and that, so you can see that. So the latest 0.5 is there because although I have Cucurella, it's come from, maybe putting Murillo down, for example, or Milenkovic down to a Nico Williams. So I don't feel like it's a huge sacrifice. I'm not massively terrified. I mean, if Murillo, if he gets his CB, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get as many bonuses as Williams, like we said, or it can be made up in different ways. And obviously, Williams definitely has that kind of assist threat. So it's not a massive deal. I'd go with it if I felt like I had to, or if I felt like it was worth it elsewhere. But that's where I've been at. Because at the moment I've gone with Cucurella. I mean, I've not had Tarkowski in any drafts, to be honest. And I was probably missing something there. I'm not saying he was a bad pick. It's probably the one has least excited me in terms of a combination of the fixtures and the C bit. I mean, you know what I mean. Just thinking about, for example, Everton's fixture. I know that Branthwaite is injured now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because that is pretty significant. I don't know how to feel about that because loads were going in with Tarkowski and I wasn't. I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe it wasn't a great thing, but maybe it was an opportunity because a lot of people won't go there now. Just looking at the fixtures quickly. So Leeds away, not great for a clean sheet. Brighton never really does. Wolves away, again, just thinking about it individually, I quite rate Wolves in terms of their ability to score. And then they've got Villa, which I just never like as a clean sheet. And then Liverpool. So anyway, it's kind of ruled him out now. But yeah, you mentioned Cucurella in the runs before, and I'm just like, and I keep, people keep saying, oh, but we don't know if Cucurella is going to do that every game. I'm not really buying into that, to be honest. We haven't seen evidence really of that recently so much. All I'm seeing at the moment with Chelsea and Cucurella is that with all the preseason games and the games in the Club World Cup, is that he, like you said, he obviously inverts and he's given it unbelievable license, isn't he? He's one of these guys who the manager almost says like, he's so clever. I can trust him to do what he wants because I also know that he'll manage to make up for it and be in the right position when we lose possession or, stop the kind of transition. He's just one of those really clever players, isn't he? And he's just, like you said, he is right in there in the 6-yard box all the time. It looks absolutely terrifying to me. And he just strikes me as this sort of guy, this sort of player who he isn't phased. Every time he strikes a ball, there's no fear in him. He just leathers it and he directs it. And he's just, I find him terrifying, to be honest, Cucurella. And I do think, Chelsea have lost Colwill, which is significant because he's probably the best centre back. But they've got a lot of centre backs, and they don't really ever seem to be that, to suffer that much without him. I mean, Caicedo's on the top of his game. He's better than he's ever been right now. Enzo is fantastic. You're talking about £200 million worth of centre midfielders that look like £200 million worth now that just keep dominating the games in midfield. Then you've got Reece James, who's also a very clever player. For all that he was going forward and doing his hamstrings in, running up and down the wing, he doesn't do that anymore. But he's always been a very clever footballer, Reece James. He's a clever guy. And you can see him just knowing the right decisions to make. And it's kind of amazing, really, to have Reece James doing that on the right and Cucurella doing it on the left, with two of these incredible midfielders, and then they've got good centre backs. I mean, if they get Donnarumma, that's bonkers in terms of their defence, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
because you can't get a goal past him. I mean, imagine having to get past those centre midfielders and get past Reece James and Cucurella is a complete nightmare. And then you finally get there and see the goal, and Donnarumma's standing there.
Yeah,
it's just not happening, is it? So I don't know. What I'm saying is, I just think Chelsea, they still need to be tested because it was kind of the second half of last season in the Club World Cup, which doesn't mean much. I'm not basing it on that. It was kind of the second half of last season, and I just think they look so much better as a team. I think they're making a really big step up this season, and I just think that in particular their defense just seems so solid. And I'm going, am I going into Chelsea when we can see they've got Palace at home, which Palace are good, but not like a massive goal scoring team. Maybe they're losing Eze. Maybe Eze's not going to play because of all the talk and so on. And they've got West Ham, Fulham, Brentford. We've spoken about Brentford already. Fulham at home. They're pretty good fixtures. Then you've got United, and then you've got Brighton at home. Am I going into that without Cucurella? Maybe I'm being silly because again, he's not particularly high on the models, or I don't think from memory. I've been on holiday, so I've not actually had a chance to look much recently. But he's not as high as a lot of the C-bit guys, is he?
No.
But yeah, I just kind of think that he's better than that at the moment because I just think Chelsea are a bit better than maybe we realise yet. And I just think Cucurella is also a bit better than we realise yet, because I don't buy into that. I don't think his role is going to change much. Chelsea look really good, and they look like they're doing the same thing all the time, and they look like they've got a good system going. And until I see differently, until I see, a bit of Cucurella. So I'm going too slowly, but
no. Well, I could be a little bit more selective actually, because there's a lot of crossover picks here, and I'm worried that we'll have nothing to talk about when we come to mine. Can we just spend a moment actually on, because I often love these picks in FPL where I'm trying to rack my brains to think about when we next pod. I wonder what your opinion is on them, and Reinders was one of those where I was thinking, it could go either way. This one, it could be either a kind of, well, we barely know anything about this guy. I can't believe people are picking him, blah blah blah, or it could go the other way and be like, this guy looks incredible. He's got an incredible record in Serie A. He's clearly a class player. He's, if the worst comes to the worst, he's still, in a strong team and all the rest of it. So give us your thought. What changed your mind there? Is it just the best 5-5, or is it more than that?
Well, it's pretty amazing, really, because he was never remotely in my consideration. And I don't typically pick Man City players, certainly Man City players who are brand new to the league and haven't played before, full stop, as you know. I like players who play. I like minutes and so on. But I just think from what I've seen, and then seeing that game when he scored twice, and actually then obviously exploring him as a player and exploring City and what it looked like and what that system looked like. And at 5.5, how can I describe it? So it's pretty clear to me that he was signed as a number 8, which is what City need. And Gundogan was the old, was that brilliant number 8 a few years ago. That a box crasher is what Reinders has been described as, and that's what you saw in that game. He said it himself that he got a phone call or whatever it was from Pep Guardiola or something, or his agent did, and he said, "We're looking for a number 8. That's what we need. We need someone who can crash into the box, and this is the guy who I've seen do it loads." Then you see the highlights, and he just does like that's what he does. He's done all his career, and I think he got, and I know he got like 10 goals, 5 assists or something last season in Serie A. But it all just adds up to me where the interviews that I'm seeing as well, he strikes me as a kind of a good boy, first of all. So he's like, you can see that he's intelligent and that he's doing what the manager says, which is great. Okay, there's some boxes ticked. He's been signed as a number 8. He's been playing this number 8 in pre-season. They don't seem to have that at the moment. I know Rodri's injured. I still think they're more likely to just play Gundogan or whatever, or in that deep line role, which they've done before, especially in some of these fixtures. So they've not got Rodri, they've not got Kovacic, and maybe someone else I can't remember. So that just generally puts his minutes up. The even worst case scenario is in the 6, but I don't think he will be. I think he'll be an 8 because he's so good at it. I don't think they need him to be a 6. I think they can get away with a passer in the 6, someone like Gundogan. So to me, it just looks like he fits. And again, this is, of course, I'm trying to be objective. That's me telling a load of stories. That's me kind of putting together a narrative as to why I think he's good. So beware of that. But that's what I feel about this guy. He looked really sharp. He's intelligent. He's done it before in leagues. I think he's like 27. I think so. I might be wrong there. So correct me. But he's kind of prime age, and he just looks like he knows what the manager wants. And any box crasher at Man City is gold dust to me. And like I said, we saw it with Gundogan that year when he got like 19 goals or whatever it was, and maybe it wasn't 19, but he certainly got me a 19-pointer the first week I brought him in. I remember away at Spurs, Christmas time. 4-2, I think it was, maybe something like that. But the box crasher at Man City, you just see the teams all, they dominate the ball. They completely dominate the ball. So therefore they dominate territory. And therefore it's usually, they've bought they've bought like Ryan Aït-Nouri and he's attacking fullbacks and they've got these wide guys. You can see they need these ways of breaking teams down, don't they? Because they've got the ball the whole time. So a clever number 8 who box crashes, who can finish, he can finish. And we've seen that already.
Really good.
So all that sort of stuff. Now I know like Anderson is solid, for example, in that 5.5 spot, for example. And maybe people like KDH, whoever it is from Everton. I'm not sure about his minutes yet. That doesn't excite me all that much, but if his minutes are good, he could be great. I've not looked into him enough. And so Anderson does look pretty solid in terms of those, but the way City dominate and that type of player, he could easily get a couple of goals, and I'm happy to roll the dice there at 5.5 million, because it's one of those that could be bonkers. I mean, if he scores a couple of goals, he's going to rocket in price, isn't he? So
yeah, exactly that. And actually, one thing that's really good about, okay, so if it takes off, great. If it doesn't, actually, we might know a few more things in a couple of weeks' time that can give you an outball. You know, if Arias has penalties at Wolves, for example, for their nice fixtures, or Dewsbury Hall secures his spot, is an easy downgrade, that sort of thing. So I think there, you know, it doesn't feel as risky as people were initially talking about, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean 5.5 is pretty low risk. You know, if you were gonna experiment and go for something there, I mean that's fine by me. It's fine for me to get it wrong. What am I missing out on? You shouldn't really be missing out on a huge amount. You know, worst case scenario, maybe doesn't even play, and I get Steve or Anderson off the bench. Anderson, by the way, could just be incredible off the bench, because again, when you think about these 4-5s, I mean that could be another spot, but. You know, we know historically that he looks like he's amazing with the C-bit, and he's always been a bit of a goal scorer. I mean, he's one of those that could easily just be a perma play. I mean, Anderson could come off the bench in any fixture with like an 11 or 12 pointer, for example. But so could a lot of other 4.5 defenders. So, you know, how bad, it doesn't look like it's much of a risk to me. And it's one of them where I'd rather be on and not have to be thinking, oh my God, I need to bring in now this 5.5 City midfielder. Like, what was I thinking? Because you know, his price is going to rocket in the next week. So for me, it's actually pretty easy at the moment. I feel pretty comfortable on him, and actually quite nice on him, because I feel like I've spent all this money on 4 like massive great midfielders, and actually like this 5.5 guy could actually be like the best, or one of the best in the whole bunch. So yeah, pretty easy for me there.
Great. I'm gonna we can come back to this if needs be, but I'm gonna put mine up just because honestly there is so much overlap, but it will just give us an opportunity to talk about some of the differences. Is there one other thing?
Yes. Can I just say one like fundamental thing about like the whole thing that could change just very quickly while it's in my mind, just thinking about it. So one thing I want to say, and this won't overlap with yours, because I want to just briefly talk about, for example, Spurs and Porro and people that interest me or scare me, because Spurs have got very good fixtures. Like we know. Sorry, can you hear that, dog?
A little. It's your version of the siren.
It's not my dog. There we go. Window closed.
It doesn't sound like a dog that you would own anyway.
Exactly.
Bit yappy.
Yeah, I don't think that it's. I'm not going to say anything about the dogs in case. Well, there's no chance my neighbours will watch this pod, but anyway, they're fine. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I keep coming back to fundamentally, obviously. So let's even just say that this cheap forward, if it is as it stands, whether it's Fulkrug, who I do really like, we'll talk about when we get to yours, or whether it's Strand Larsen, it still is a weak point for me in this team. And what I do also like is we've talked so much about these great defenders. And so, for example, if I want another 5.5 or a Porro, I need to explore more. Just go, and I have explored it. Go into the 4-5-1, which I've had versions of earlier this week, and I was pretty set on a 4-5-1 for a couple of days. And just getting rid of that second striker. And there are reasons why I've gone back to this, because going 4-5-1 means losing that one of those 4.0s that offers so much value. That's the lowest price player in the game. Yeah. You want that baseline player that offers so much value, and it's another player on the bench. Like if I've got 2 cheap forwards, like whatever his name is, the guy for Bournemouth, Thingy Junior or whatever, Krupi Junior, it is a problem, because you know it definitely rules out bench boost for a while. But at the same time, as I've always said, I'm more interested in making sure I do have the 11 that I most want on the field. And if that means it's more sensible for me to actually just go 4-5-1, I potentially will do that. Because if you imagine, for example, I've already got 0.5 in the bank, that Fulkrug becomes 4.5, that's 2 million in the bank. That would put a 4 million defender, Steve, for example, to a 5.5 that I might want. So Spurs tonight are in a playing 5 at the back, by the way. So this is this is like a little bit worrying, pretty significant to me. When Porro was already like mental for projections for game week 1, because Burnley, that's an amazing fixture. He seems to be on a lot of set pieces. Well, he's now actually right wing back. He's not actually just full back anymore. And that's a little bit scary to me when Spurs have got very good fixtures for like 7 or 8 weeks. And I was strongly considering starting with Porro anyway. And also it's a 5.5 price point. So if that becomes ridiculously appealing to me, as I've just said, Fulkrug becomes a 4.5, a 4.0 becomes a 5.5/Porro, and I could even have either a 5.5 still in the bank, or I could go Kelheller to Sells, for example, where I've just been talking about those ridiculous fixtures for the keeper. And actually, it does feel stronger in the 11, but the bench is weaker and the structure is weaker. But I don't. Final thing, I've seen a lot of people talk about that draft and say, well, it just means there are no transfers to make, and or I'm stuck here. It's all win or lose. I don't agree with that at all. Don't agree with any of that, because it's still like this to me. This or even the 4-5-1 to me is actually a version of extremely flexible to me, because I own all of those players that I want. I have all of those price points. If I've got a Cucurella, I don't need to worry about a Cucurella or a 6.0. If I've got a 5.5, I don't need to worry about all the 5.5s and moving on to them. And I've already got Williams, for example, as a Forest defender. And I've already got all the midfielders that I've just talked about. And I've already got the most expensive striker that isn't Haaland. So to me, it's extremely flexible. It just means that you sit there for maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, build up the transfers until you know which one of them can maybe make way, and then slightly restructure. So that makes sense. So could easily be a 4-5-1 here. And I need to think hard about that. And seeing Spurs tonight in with 5 at the back, with 3 at the back, is a bit of a worry. So yeah.
I mean, have they been doing that in other preseason games?
Well, that's a good question, because
I haven't noticed that.
Yeah, they're playing PSG. I don't think they have, but it was. So, but it might just. I mean, he switched between those sort of formations a lot at Brentford, didn't he? So maybe he just switches it in some of the games, and maybe doesn't. So even if it's just 50% of the time, I don't know, that he goes wing backs. But when you look at the players they've got available at the moment, it does kind of suit it. They've got quite a few very good centre backs, and not many, available attackers until if they do sign an Eze or someone else, or and they've got Sarr as like their 10 or whatever it is. So the kind of the players they've got available at the moment does seem to suit that system. And I think it was Thingy Gold, Alistair Gold, is it, who predicted the Spurs team tonight before it came out, and then he was right. So anyway, it's something to think about, isn't it? But we've talked all that stuff about defenders. Do I have enough spots in there? So I would be. I'm still very open to the 4-5-1 and the sacrifices that it means. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Cool. Just going to show you. It won't greatly surprise you. To be honest with you, I've been working this week at just trying to sort out the kind of peripherals, and it's not wildly different thought process, but I'm kind of arriving at it myself as well. Similar kind of formation and structure, but a few little differences. So just read this out here for audio. Kelleher, Munoz. I'll come back to this in a minute. Munoz, Concert, Murillo, Palmer, Wirtz, Salah, Reinders, Fernandez, Fulkrug, Watkins, bench of Dubravka, Anderson, Steve, Gui. Yeah, so I think really what my last decision has been all week really is just trying how to correctly balance that defense. And loosely speaking, I've been sort of playing around with whether it's 2 5-5s, 2 4-5s, whether it's 2 4s, a 6 and a 5-5 or a 5, etc. It's those kind of permutations that I'm working with. And the midfield isn't going to change more or less come what may. I can't see what would change it. Obviously, seeing Rodgers is probably the only thing that's given me a little bit of a flutter. But I think that's probably going to stay as it is. I think I'm quite happy with it. It's got all the picks there. It's easy to come down from them. We plenty of pods have talked about how it's easier to come off, one of these people than to put them back in, and so on and so forth. So it's not a great deal to talk about that's different, but I'll just pick on a couple of people who I want to talk about with you.
There's loads to talk about.
One has been whether a sort of a duo of 4.5s is worthwhile. You've obviously decided not, so we can come back to that in just a second. And the quality of the 5.5s against the other premiums that you've already talked through. So we can start with that, and then you've got to give me a few minutes on Fulkrug, obviously.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the defenders? I'm really torn on Munoz because he's one of those people I find, him and Milenkovic are two people that I've really struggled to part with just because I've got such a personal affection for them. And there's a lot of reasons behind why they're solid picks. Cucurella has been someone we've been talking about in the background as well. And I remember our post-mortem pod being very high on him. So of course, he's someone to talk about. But Munoz, I don't know. I can't make my mind up here because, of course, there's so many noises in the background about Palace. Broadly, I'm not too worried about them. Because I do think that they find a way, don't they? They are very pragmatic. They've got a great system. It will always play with him. I didn't with Munoz in mind, rather. But yeah, there is a little bit of a nagging thought of whether I should just be using that a bit more proactively, because of course the first couple of fixtures aren't great. There is a bit of uncertainty there, but he's such an interesting asset, such a game. He's such a threat, someone who's so useful, and people were just avoiding him. So he's such an interesting one. Yeah. Murillo, go on. Sorry,
can we stop there? Just sorry, just to that point. And also, I just want to say, looking at the chat, I'm telling you, again, as we've already seen today with lots of evidence, my brain is genuinely dead. I haven't slept for 3 days and I'm just talking gibberish. So just to remind you that, because Alex said, can we talk about chip strategy? So I will just we'll mention briefly whatever we're thinking about, like any chip strategy, if any. And then also Eric's asking about Palmer. And actually, I do want to talk about that. So can you just remind me, because he sort of said, why is everyone's locked him in, which is quite an interesting point. Everyone's got him in and we've not even talking about it. So to remind me to come back to that as well. Munoz, when I look at my team that I've just talked through, what are the biggest issues in my head and the biggest things that I'm not happy with, that I'm struggling to find how I can settle down with? And Munoz is probably the biggest one in that team. Because, for example, if I've got Cucurella, trying to look ahead, am I going to sell? And I don't mean to talk about my draft here because it's relevant to yours, it's the same thing, but am I going to sell Cucurella? No, I wouldn't think so. And I can't afford him, for example, for Williams as it is, or even if I do have the extra 0.5, I'm not going to sell a Forest defender either, because they've got, Burnley away and Sunderland or something in 5 and 6 or whatever it is. And Munoz's fixtures are 4 and 5. And looking at, you've got to put yourself in that position. When it gets to game week 4, am I going to go into Sunderland at home and I've not got Munoz, who I know objectively is like Palace's best player and their attacker? And he's like the most attacking defender in the league. And he's also, I think, quite good on the C-bit / tackles, as you say. That's a massive, massive issue. I don't have a route to go there. And you can say, maybe I could put Richards on the bench as a 4-5 or something like that. And at least I can cover some of those points and maybe get some C-bits and clean it. Fine, fair enough, whatever. But it's not Munoz, and it's like I'm not going to be comfortable going into that. And that's another reason why I'm saying about that. Me maybe changing my whole team around to have an extra position there, because Munoz really needs to be in game week 4, and you've got him because you're thinking the same thing. And I just don't think he can ever be a bad pick, and even starting against Chelsea away or whatever. So yeah, that's my long answer to Munoz. Is like,
but as you can imagine, I've got the same problem with Cucurella. I keep coming back to, and there is a way I can manage it. It's quite straightforward. Consa goes down to 4 million, and then essentially one of those 5/5s goes up. So it's quite plausible. But then, of course, you won't get rid of them. So it's really hard, because I'm not going to. If I start with Cucurella over Munoz, I won't get Munoz. So this is why the 4-5-1 does appeal. Yeah, very, very, very difficult to know quite the right. The other thing, Cucurella isn't C-bit friendly. I know that's not the biggest thing, because of course they are more likely to keep clean sheets than Palace. I think it's fair to say. Maybe even than Forest. I think that's something that can be debated. So yeah, that is causing me some issues. So it is defense really that I'm concerned about. Strangely enough, with because we'll come back to that in a second, because I do think that this has a knock-on effect. The Füllkrug thing, like you, I would ideally have some money to pivot, because there is nothing in that basket, is there? There really is nothing below of any interest, not unless you suddenly know the leads forward and you're happy with that. And it doesn't feel like a great strategy. So that is one of the troubling things. So even if I stick with this, it may well be that I do the constant downgrade just to get that money. Even if I don't change the other two, it might be that just to enable that flexibility. But with Fulkrug, I feel like I should have a couple of words on this, because I mean, all summer, you know, I've been watching kind of little videos of him. I know we're all get addicted to these kind of dangerously pointless, in a way, club promotional videos, you know, where you see him doing all of the kind of sort of amusing 5-minute, 10-minute bits in the training complex and that sort of thing. He just looks like a man reborn. He's happy, he's fit, he looks like the kind of the father who wants to be your friend in the dressing room. You know, he's that kind of figure. He's a bit of a leader. And let's just say for a minute, he's kept out some really high quality players out of the German team for a long time. You know, he's no slouch. He's a quality finisher as well. The problem is with him is that I generally avoid players who have to be supplied. And that's always an issue. In that kind of 6 to 7 bracket, there are some strikers I really like. I like Strand Larsen. He's a good player. More likely to play 90 and all the rest of it. Has a chance of penalties and so on. Evan Nilsson I've really liked all summer. I think he's another, in a way, not wildly dissimilar type of player, but a bit more athletic and mobile and that sort of thing. But they're all players who broadly need supplying, don't they? That's the only thing I will say. But with Fulkrug, the reason why I am interested in him is he's showing a bit of versatility this summer. He's supplying Bowen sometimes. You know, there's a couple of goals where he's supplied others. He's lent assists. And add to that, the two main sources of West Ham goals, I think, are they're a bit more aggressive in the press at the moment. So Bowen particularly is the best presser. He is chasing down not lost causes, but he's chasing down things around the corner flag, etc., nicking it off people and squaring it into the middle. And the guy that's there is Fulkrug. And the crossing from wing backs has become a bit more aggressive as well, obviously with Juve. So that leads me to believe fixtures aren't great, but the main sources of goals are going to be coming Fulkrug's way. So I'm open-minded to keeping him for a while, to be honest with you. I could see a scenario where he becomes perhaps a rotation pick, but I'm open to the idea of keeping him for a while. I do think he's underrated as a pick. He's definitely the best 6, and it's not even close now. He's definitely the best cheap striker below, 6'5". I don't think that's a particularly controversial thing to say now. He looks really happy. And you know how it is. You just see these things and the little things that you can't do with the stats. He just looks happy, looks fired up.
I agree.
Eno's saying it in the chat. He's quite right. So fit and fired up. Yeah, he looks like a new man. He looks like he's taken a few years off his life. He looks a bit younger. That might be rubbish, but yeah.
No, I totally agree, and this is why I'm struggling with it a little bit, because you don't want to let something go, and you feel you kind of know that. I mean, this is how I feel: is that I kind of know that I have seen something with Fulkrug, and no one's going to pick him, and I'm like, well, I know that he's going to do really well, so I want him and to score those points, so I can say, ha. I knew that he was going to do well. Look at me, using preseason, and and that's how I kind of feel, in an extreme way, because I completely agree. I've seen all those videos, and like he's earned his way on into the starting 11 like through happiness alone, and the joy that he's brought to the dressing room, and like the whole team, the camaraderie and stuff, and like he's got a brilliant relationship with Bowen, which you love in two strikers. I mean, they literally like the best mates, aren't they? And they actually love each other, and that is genuinely, it sounds like silly, but you can see it on the field, and it does count for something. And similarly to what I sort of said last time, like his job is just to score the goals. That's just his job. I know you said, yeah, okay, you don't like to typically pick someone who needs to be supplied, but it is kind of nice that that's his only job. It's Bowen's a bit like the Wayne Rooney, where because he's so good and can do so much other stuff that he'll do that. But whereas Fulkrug's the kind of Van Nistelrooy in that team that's all he does. He's just gonna there to finish it, and he has got a lethal finish on him. He could easily be on penalties as well. I know we don't want to go down that conversation. We talked about loads last time, but again, just to reiterate, he's like taken 27 in his career. I mean, scored 27 and missed 2. So he always stepped up. He's always stepped up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's always stepped up though. So he's going to say like, give it to me. So he could easily be on penalties, which is pretty significant. You just don't know. But yeah, I mean, so I really like it because it does appeal. And I don't like to, and this is what I meant about booking in transfers, but Sunderland looks like, I just think Sunderland is the team to target, and it could be a bit of a pasting. Again, it is away. I'm sorry, Sunderland fans. They could easily. It could be great. They have made some signings. They could, but it's a potential one where I don't think their defense is very good, and it could be a high scoring game. And you kind of want a piece of that. But it's a big bet to make if you do see it as a booked in transfer, because again, inspecting the fixtures just as closely as possible. I mean, they've got Chelsea in game week 2, which is about as bad as it gets. Along with Arsenal right now in my head, that's how good Chelsea are. It's about as bad as it gets. Then they've got Forest away, which is, again, terrible for goal scorers. Of course, they could score against Nottingham Forest. I know they're like kind of overperformed, but it's a terrible attacking fixture, Forest away. It's a fight. It's an absolute fight. So, and then they've got Spurs, which at home, which is okay. Yeah, okay. But again, is it Spurs with 5 at the back? What does that really look like? And then they've got Palace, which is a pretty terrible fixture again. So I don't like the fixtures, and that is a problem for me. And it's one of them where I just have to take it on the chin that, yeah, I do feel really good about Fulkrug going into game week 1. And I know he's looking sharp, and I know he's really happy, and I know he's up front with Bowen. But the fixtures maybe just aren't good enough, and it's a big bet to make. I don't need to make a big bet, and just so I can get these few extra points because I've scouted someone out, is how I'm feeling. You know what I mean? So whereas, for example, versus a Strand Larsen, if you are going to go with the striker, is someone we've just seen score 14 goals in his first season for Wolves, without a huge amount of minutes, without any penalties. His finishing was lethal at one point, one of the best in the league. I think he got 14 goals from 10 expected goals or something, but at one point he was absolutely lethal. Big guy in a good team with a good manager who's nailed, and we've seen do it before. And actually, they're the exact opposite, whereby they start with a bad fixture against City, although it is at home. And then they've got Bournemouth, who've got no defence left, Everton at home, Newcastle, and they've got Leeds at home, and they've got Spurs, and they've got Brighton, and they've got Sunderland, and they've got Burnley. Really, really good set of fixtures, actually, for quite a while. Yeah, so I'm already, even talking out loud, as much as it pains me, and as much as I really like Fulkrug, I'm already just thinking, well, it's not sensible or logical for me to make that bet over someone like Strand Larsen, and I need to find that extra money to put him in. But then even still, because of the dearth of strikers at that price point, at 6.5 and below, it's still quite a big bet, because once you go past game week 1, you're not going to go to Fulkrug, are you? Because the fixtures, you're not going to miss Sunderland and then go there. As you say, there aren't really any others. So the bet then, if you go Strand Larsen, is still entirely on Strand Larsen, unless you're going to find the extra million for the 7.5 guys who now look really good. So it's still a big bet to make, even Strand Larsen, which is why I'm worried. Fulkrug is an even bigger bet to make based on those fixtures. So it's difficult for me to say no, but the closer we get to deadline, I can't see myself going there game week 1. And I might have to just sit there and be really pissed off when he gets, a brace, and I'm like, I could have just paid for the transfer anyway. And you know what I mean? But it's a big bet to make, is what I'm thinking.
Yep. Yeah, no, I understand that. There's a couple of questions. Comments about minutes. So I'm not. I think it was really encouraging to see that he got 90 in that last preseason friendly. Was taking penalties in the shootout. He did miss that one, bizarrely enough. But you probably saw the quote, didn't you? Maybe earlier this week or after that game, where Fulkrug was saying, throughout my career, when I've got a lot of goals, in seasons where I've done really well, such a high proportion of his goals have been late on in games. So they've been sort of 70, 75 minutes onwards, huge proportions of them late on. So I think that's a really good sign for him. Is that minutes wise, I'm not particularly concerned. People were talking about Wilson. I mean, come on. I think one of the reasons why Fulkrug is easily the best 6 is because, he's not going to be replaced, so to speak. Now, West Ham are in financial trouble. They're really trying to find every penny they can to try and get a midfielder, which is really what they need. Someone in the middle of the park, someone athletic, someone who can move things around a bit and so on. Striker is not a priority, and that's why they've brought in Wilson on this kind of pay as you play type deal. If anything, he's more likely to be a kind of, if Bowen gets injured, this is what we would do scenario. That's kind of how I would see it. I don't think it's a huge risk to anyone's minutes. Wilson, if anything, Fulcrew's more likely to lose minutes to Souček or Paquetá just being pushed up. And that might be a slight issue during the most difficult games, you know. So I don't think it's a huge issue. But yeah, I think that's all you've said is absolutely fine. I'm fairly happy with him at this point in time. I'm probably going to be sticking with that. But leaving the money for a Strand Larsen does appeal to me. Spurs are a bit of a blind spot for me. So I'm going to read up carefully on what happens tonight. I can already see some messages in the chat about them. So we'll definitely look at that carefully because they are a blind spot for me. I'm not really paying enough attention to Spurs. I don't really know what to expect, and therefore I've been ruling them out largely myself. For anyone talking as well, I don't think they are about this, but to be honest with you, those 2-4-5s could have been anyone. It's really, I'm just trying to be happy with the structural sense. Anderson definitely won't go anywhere, I suspect, but the others are still up for a little bit of grabs there as well.
So Spurs are 1-0 up against PSG from just getting towards half time from a Mickey van der Ven goal.
I know, that's gonna swing things, isn't it?
Wow, we'll have to try and catch some of this second half after this. Well, I will anyway.
Well, in which case that brings us towards the latter stages. I'm just going to do some quick fire stuff and then we'll sign off because we're knocking on 2 hours again and I have to go somewhere soon. Go on.
Well, we need to talk about some more stuff. Like I said, we would very briefly, just some stuff. Right, to get it out of the way in terms of chip strategy, I don't know about you, but I'm not really thinking about chip strategy. It's just not the way I kind of play. I'll pick the team first. Bench boost 2 is an option, but it's more likely bench boost 8 if I do go with Burnley and Leeds defender because they play each other and it looks good for that week. So anyway, I'm not really thinking about it. So that's my answer. It's not a particularly interesting thing to say, it really is. It's just my own personal opinion. But on the Palmer subject, I personally think, first of all, I think he's an incredible pick. I actually just think he's going to go up a level this year. I think he's actually going to get even better, which is, again, it's just a ludicrous thing to say, and who cares if that's what I think. And it's kind of hard to get your head around what that looks like, but it's always hard to imagine something until it's happened, and you think, well, how can he we've seen him for 2 years. How can this guy, do you know what some of the things that made me think about it? First of all, the players around him are better now, and he has looked superb recently. The whole blip last season was just clearly like a confidence issue, which I won't go into the details of, but is kind of understandable. And we talked about it last season a lot. And now with this team, and especially João Pedro, who's an incredible player, by the way, who I think we do need to talk about as well as to the 7.5s briefly, because I'm worried about João Pedro and not owning him because he looks sensational now. And I do think he's kind of not to go off on a tangent, but I do think he's probably like a 70-minute player, 75-minute, which isn't great. And that's the big thing that's like making me feel better about not having him. But other than that, this guy is a joke. And I think João Pedro is really is scary because he's the second highest owned player in the game. Anyway, playing with Palmer, even just like, there was what was it now? The last friendly that Palmer played, he had 2. Did you see them? The 2 direct free kicks that he had, and it just kind of reminded me about this guy's just a completely different planet. There were 2 free kicks that were like, 25-yard, 30-yard free kicks, and both of them should have gone in. One of them hit like the corner, the bar and the post at the same time, and one of them missed by about 3 millimeters. And both times the keeper didn't move, just the way he struck them, you just think you can just see how repeatable it is. He has a technique that's just like no one else's. I think we're going to see Palmer score a lot of free kicks this season, by the way, because he clearly worked on it. It's an unbelievable technique. But I just think, without going on about it, I think we're going to see him go up a level in a better team. I think Chelsea are going to be better, and they are better in all departments. He's absolutely nailed, and obviously we've talked about how much he is a fantasy asset on all set pieces and penalties. I think he's going to be even better. So I think it's going to be absurd this year, is my personal view. So I just wanted to say that. And I suppose last thing that we haven't mentioned with the drafts, which is a big hole, is that 7.5 striker thing that is pretty big now. We've obviously got Chris Wood, we've got Mateta, who I think Mateta is on penalties now. I do think it interchanges a bit. Eze might leave anyway, but we've always known it kind of switches between them. And I think in the past we've had the kind of like, if he scores the next one, he takes it, and if he misses, he misses. I think we can be pretty certain that Mateta takes the next one. You know, he's just taken one with Eze on the pitch. He scored it. Eze missed his last one or whatever, and then he missed in the shootout. And Eze's useless at penalties. He always has been. It's just that he's got lucky. He's actually just got lucky a few times when he scored them, because he has, you know, he just, and any good keeper knows now that you just don't move until he's done his little stupid step thing that he does every time, and then he hits the ball at 30% of the power that he should be because he's had no run up, and then you can just dive, and when you see which way he's going, you know, Eze's anyway. So that is another big hole in both of our teams, that we don't have the 7.5 striker. Because what do we do if João Pedro just completely go off and become this player that we know he can be? That's like a Brazilian number 9. He's incredible talent, and he's now playing in an amazing team. And you know, we've seen all the quotes that like he had his holiday. He just went there early. I mean, he's done everything right. You know, we've known him as like the guy with a bad attitude. But he said he'd been in training with Gittins. By the way, is it Gittins who signed for Chelsea as well? They've both been there for weeks training on their own and with all the youngsters and stuff, and getting to know each other, because everyone else had obviously had the long holiday after the Club World Cup, but he'd already had his holiday. He said he spent 5 weeks in Brazil with the family prior to the when he joined up with the Club World Cup. So he said he had a great holiday at home. He felt great. So then he just came up early and decided to get his house moving sorted early to Cobham, got his house sorted, and just said, I want to train as early as possible, you know, because he wants to fulfill his potential. And I just think, Jesus, this guy's not messing around. And he's just doing it on the pitch. The guy's not asked. He's totally fearless. He doesn't even, Delap's just like, he doesn't even acknowledge that Delap exists. He's just like, don't bother me. I'll just do my stuff, and you can have your 20 minutes at the end. And you know what I mean? So all this sort of stuff. I mean, Delap is good, and every time Delap's come on, he looks angry and he looks like he'd score goals, and that is your thing. So you do it. But does he even come off for Delap, or does he move to the left, or you know, does he drop deeper because he's so good and he can play anywhere across the front? Because that's a significant worry. If it's not him who comes off for Delap in the first week or two, and then suddenly João Pedro's a 90-minute player, that's a real problem, especially for us who don't have him and we don't have a route to get there. And there's always one sacrifice. If you've got Bruno Fernandes, if you don't have a Bruno Fernandes, how do you get to Bruno Fernandes? And that's where I'm leaning at the moment, is I'd rather have Bruno Fernandes, because I think he's that good and he'd be that hard to get to. There's always a choice. There's always, as we know, there's always a choice. And right now, easily the biggest problem we've got is that we can't get to a 7.5 striker, and they could be ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, the simple answer to this is you can't cover everything, can you? And I tend to lean on the idea that my current feeling is I'm only relatively comfortable not having one, but that's all you got to go with. I think I would be quite happy with the assumption at this point in time that one of those big people in midfield might at some point just need to be brought down, and with a few more weeks of information, hopefully that will give us what we need, and then that will unlock a little bit of money. But yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. You're always going to have some risk, and João Pedro is definitely going to be one of the risks that I'm probably going to have to take on. Just coming to some questions, and then we'll do a quick bit on the wheel, and then we'll wrap up. I seem to be losing my voice as well, which is great. That's not a question. That's a nice comment on Fulkrug. Let's just do a couple of these quickly before we go on to the wheel. Alex, if you can only have 2 of Watkins, Wirtz, or Bruno, which 2?
Sorry, I was just reading another comment. Sorry, I didn't realize the question screen. Here's in the community seems to be wrestling. If you can only have 2, so that's the typical one, isn't it? My answer is have all 3. No, I don't like this, because I don't deviate from what I do think you should. I currently have all 3, and that's where I'm rolling with.
I mean, I'll answer this for us, really. I think structurally, Alex, the last one that I moved personally was Wirtz. I mean, I'm a little bit piggybacking on that one, so that would be the one that I would lose. Although I understand that none of them are ideal, but it's just that the others easier for me to plan around structurally. But I understand that there's no right answer to that one. Favorite for. Yep.
just really quickly, I don't want to just leave it at that. That wasn't going to answer the question, but I really couldn't get rid of Wirtz. So I'd have to find another way around it because I just think it's just too much, especially in that front heavy in the first game and maybe even the second game. I just think of all the players who I think are definitely, almost definitely going to score points in the first week or two, it's Wirtz because Liverpool are that good and he's so central to it. So I'd find that really, really difficult. I think given the alternatives early on, I think I would drop Bruno early on, given the alternatives, because I think there's some really good midfielders that you could have early on if you want to book in getting Bruno somehow in a few weeks' time.
FOMO, his dilemma is about 4.5 forwards. I mean, again, I'm not going to pretend put enough thought into Krupi Jr. And his antics in League 2 in France. But it's gooey for now, just because they have that clause and we know enough about it, and there's reason to believe he's Premier League ready to some extent. So I'm just going to leave it at that personally. And last one on the kind of ones that I just highlighted from earlier on, easy. Thoughts on Porro as an option?
Yep. Quite like him. Have concerns that it's a bit trappy with Spurs and the fixtures and just them being Spurs and we don't really know what we're getting. However, we've seen tonight he could be playing wing back some of the games and that is good. I also like him a lot because he is a potential placeholder for Munoz, which actually increases his appeal for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I'm just going to do a quick, because I went to the effort of putting it together, so I'm gonna have a quick spin on the wheel. So I put this together earlier. You won't be able to necessarily see it from where you are, and I haven't done it very well. I did it very quickly earlier, but I'm going to finish off tonight with putting Danny on the spot with some quick spins of this wheel, which all have a question related to it. This could go horribly wrong because I haven't tried it and I don't know what the button is that I need to press. So here we go. I will give you this question that you have to answer immediately. Okay, what's the biggest current dilemma in your team?
Well, we've got a round of applause. Can you hear that, by the way? There's a big round of applause.
No, it's on the screen. It's on the
it is the 4-5-1 or 3-5-2. It's another defender or a cheap striker currently.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. I think personally for me, it's just getting the right order of that defense would be the thing that I need to make me feel happy. And it's not being helped by this background stuff of Spurs playing tonight and making it harder. Going on further, apologies for that sort of terribly cheap noise in the background, but I'm here now and I'm getting through it, so it's the way. Are you worried about avoiding more City and Arsenal coverage? Not coverage. I know you hate coverage, don't you? But
I'm not worried. But I think it's going to be very interesting because I think we could easily have Haaland just massively being the best option after 4 or 5 weeks. But I'm not worried, and I also have a City player, which is fun. Is there anything else to that question? I don't get worried. It's part of my, that's just. I've already made that decision, so I'm fine with it.
No, that's fine. Good. We'll do a few more. We don't necessarily need to do them all. Oh yeah. Oh no, I was getting excited about you being able to talk about 4 million defenders.
Yes, Goodmanson
as the answer to that one. It would be Bijol, but sadly we can't pick him. Best premium defender, I suppose for you, it's probably Cuckoo at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Just about.
Yeah, I think I would say that as well. I think picking from the start is He just seemed like the obvious. One of the issues actually I've had with picking him, you kind of want to, as you said, this idea of pivoting to Munoz, and it's impossible really, because he's got a lot of his great fixtures come after that point. So you if you buy him, you keep him. I think it's one of those things you can't really do anything about.
Yeah.
I really should have thought this through, Danny, and the spinning noise, but nevertheless, we'll do a couple more.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, yeah. If you stay this long and you've seen the painful effort that I put in here. Best cheap midfielder, is it Reinders, or is there anyone else that interests you?
Oh, there's one for every bracket, isn't there? But KDH, Anderson, Reinders. So yeah, KDH, Reinders, that's 5.5. Although obviously that's just, it's pretty close with Anderson. 6, let's go Rutter, Brighton. We didn't talk about him. I think he's a pretty good pick. Pretty good play. Pretty decent. Yeah, 6.5, Sarr. 7, Rodgers. Pretty straightforward. I think most people would say the same thing.
That draft that might be void from last night, by the way, I wasn't happy about this at all. But I had Jorginho as one of my early midfield picks, and everyone was kind of like, but then afterwards they were kind of, oh yeah.
Oh no, nice.
You've already answered this question, Gibbonson. Let's go on to the next one. This is probably giving people a stroke at home to watch this. Sorry. Overrated pick. Can you give me someone who?
It's not Goodmanson, by the way, in case anyone skips to this bit. It's a lead centre back. Overrated pick. Right, you go first on this one. Put me under pressure here. I got to do them all.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, it should be. We should be sharing it out. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well.
It's hard in this day and age.
I think actually I would tend to lean at this point in time, just from because we got some evidence on this now. I would be I'd be quite wary of starting with a Liverpool defender. So I think that would be my overrated spot for this point in time.
With context, as you say, yeah, I think Van Dijk, yeah. Yeah, maybe even Gyökeres, to be honest, at this point right now, in terms of a different position. But yeah.
I think I've left it on there. So we've done that one. I'll have to get rid of that in a minute. We've already talked through the power midfield, so I'm going to skip that one as well. I didn't think we were going to do it. Actually, well, let's just go through the others. I won't spin it anymore. What team would you regard as the biggest trap? Potentially, someone who's being lured like a moth to the flame.
Damn. Having a look. God.
I mean, I'll answer this first because I've obviously said it already. I thought it was going to be Spurs. I mean, the evidence from tonight from the background seems to be that perhaps I'm wrong about that. So that will be a few days of thinking about that before we lock in. But that was the one I thought it was going to be anyway.
That's exactly what I was thinking, which is why I didn't have an answer, because that's what I would have said. But I'm just not sure now that it's fair to say that. So yeah, I'll keep thinking, but go to the next one.
Well, actually, I'll finish up with this because I think I don't want to labour the point. But the last one, I'll drop off the screen there, was actually, I was just going to ask you, what do you think what's the biggest sacrifice that you think you're very willing to make? Because everyone has to make some form of sacrifice, whether it's 4-5-1 and you adopt an unusual structure to get the team that you want, whether it's to take out one of the premiums that you would ideally have. Is there a sacrifice that you are just willing to accept, essentially?
I think, yeah, my sounds boring, don't want to be repetitive, but my current biggest sacrifices that I'm currently willing to accept are the 7.5 million strikers, which is a lot of them, and it's significant. And everything from midfield and defence that I don't get as a result of having the 4 big midfielders, and in particular, I suppose, Bruno, probably, to also answer that sort of question of who you might sacrifice first.
I'm going to say Arsenal because it doesn't feel right, but nevertheless, every conclusion I've come to over the summer has had them as another bit of a blind spot. Whether that works out or not, but I think there's enough reason to wait at this moment in time, just because the demands on our finances are such. We can't. It's hard to get another 10 million spot in midfield. It's hard to get a 9 million striker in there that isn't the one who's got really good fixtures. It's hard to pick a Gabriel with the financial demands that are on our squads at this point in time, and the lack of C-bits. So it's not right, because we're going to want them, but it's the sacrifice that we'll have to accept for now. Right, I guess we should leave things there. Lots to mull over. It sounds to me, Danny, that you're going to go immediately back to your draft.
Absolutely. Spurs have scored again. So who scored? Can anyone tell us in the chat if anyone's still there? I don't know. But 2-0 to Spurs now. I don't think anyone was expecting this in this game. But I don't. Anyway.
No,
it was Romero. So the other centre back. Oh my word.
Really? Both goals from set pieces. Maybe I'd be interested.
I think so, wouldn't you? Wowzers. Oh dear.
Okay. Well, we'll see you for a complete U-turn in 24 hours.
No, yeah, we should have said, shouldn't we? We should, we've done our slutty title and stuff with final drafts. I was laughing at I won't let it, but some people had videos like a week ago saying final draft, and I was like, fuck off, final draft.
Oh no!
A week ago, we're bad enough having that as a title today. Porro assist. I thought it must have been, because it'll be from a corner.
Okay, well, we're going to go and cry, but. There's a chance that we might be back
tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with final draft, and then potentially Friday we can do final. Yeah,
okay, right, brilliant. No, we'll be back with you at some point to actually give you confirmation and of our U-turns, basically. Great. Okay. Well, have a good evening, Danny, and thank you for your company, and good luck with your last. I don't know how many hours it is, but your remaining time until the dreaded deadline. So enjoy your last tinkers.
Well, I just need to get some sleep tonight and actually regain some kind of cognitive function. But yeah, cheers, and we'll chat soon.
Cool. See you later.
See you later.